base of the end of the world starting with 5 million points. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276, Speaking Human Language. After moving around, several people arrived at the martial arts training ground. The largest open space inside the Xianwu Taoist temple was the square in front of the Xianwu Hall, followed by the martial arts training ground. There is not much difference in area between the two, and the martial arts training ground is only slightly smaller. Taoist King Xuan asked, "Little donor, what do you think of this place?" Luo Ren spent more than half of the past month at the martial arts training ground, practicing swordsmanship and boxing skills. He was already very familiar with every plant and tree in the martial arts training ground. Without looking at it, he nodded and said, "Martial arts training ground. There is enough space." Then he asked again, "Master, are you sure you are here? Don't consider other places. If this place is used, there will be no place for the disciples of the Haoshan martial arts sect to practice martial arts and exercise." King Xuan Taoist said, "It doesn't matter, there will be a place for practicing martial arts and training, that's it." Now that he said that, Luo Ren stopped asking any more questions, looked straight ahead, and said silently in his heart, "System, open the city-state construction panel." A moment after the words fell, blue light appeared out of thin air in front of his eyes, quickly gathered, and then something like a scroll, which then unfolded into a screen of light. The content of the light screen is exactly the same as the Yansheng city-state construction interface formed, which can build city walls, arsenals, chariot factories, and city-state bases. Without further ado, let's start the construction directly. Luo Ren first built the city-state base, and after the construction was completed, he built the arsenal. After the construction of the city-state base and arsenal was completed, the space in the martial arts training ground was almost full, and there was no longer enough space to build a tank factory. In fact, Xianwu Taoist Temple is located on the top of Xianwu Mountain, and was built in ancient times. There are no roads and buildings used for vehicles. If the tank factory is built inside the Taoist temple, the actions of the tanks, armored personnel carriers and other vehicles produced will be extremely restricted. Therefore, Luo Ren planned to open up authority to Zhang Ziyan and let him selectively build it, which could be regarded as throwing the problem to him. Two steel buildings rose from the ground. Zhang Ziyan was dumbfounded when he saw it. Even the well-informed King Xuan Taoist was filled with astonishment. Such a scene was not about living longer and walking more distance. You can see, if you eat a few more pounds of salt. At this time, his eyes fell on Luo Ren, and he felt that this person was full of mystery. He even thought in his heart that Luo Ren was not a god from heaven who came down to earth. But how could a god come down to earth and build such a futuristic science fiction building? After a little thought, he felt relieved. Yes, the Society of Gods is also developing with the times. Luo Ren looked back at the stunned Zhang Ziyan. He didn't want to waste time explaining, so he asked in his heart, "The system can directly transmit the instructions for construction and production of buildings to the mind of the city-state city lord?" "Can. Okay, pass the operating instructions and the like to Zhang Ziyan of the Xianwu Taoist sect, and give him access to infrastructure construction." Byte. The target is Zhang Ziyan of the Xianwu Taoist sect. Information is being transmitted. Byte. Transfer. Byte. Infrastructure permissions are open. Zhang Ziyan felt that a lot of information came out of thin air in his mind, just like when he was in front of the Xianwu Hall. Among the information, there was a description of the building in front of him. Arsenal, chariot factory, city-state base. He murmured to himself, and the horror in his eyes became more intense. He looked at Luo Ren and asked coldly, "Donor Luo, are you really a human? What happened in less than an hour was too unbelievable and beyond common sense." In the past, his master, Taoist Master King Xuan, taught him that he should study Taoism and believe in science. But now he has some doubts about believing in science. At a loss looking at his master, he opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to express the confusion and questions in his heart. Taoist King Xuan knew clearly that he had brought Zhang Ziyan back from the Sino. Although he was a master and apprentice, he actually had the same affection as father and son. He could tell his thoughts without words, just from his eyes and expressions. He stroked his beard gently, with a kind face, and said, "The Tao can be Tao, but it is very Tao." Zhang Ziyan was confused for a long time, then his eyes lit up. He nodded seriously, and said respectfully, "Master, I understand." Taoist King Sun showed a satisfied smile. Then Zhang Ziyan walked to the edge of the arsenal, scratched with his hands, and then a rectangular box appeared in front of the arsenal's door. He squatted down, opened the lid of the box, saw the automatic rifle inside, and couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's really amazing." He stood up, faced Luo Ren, cupped his fists, and cupped his hands, and said sincerely, "On behalf of the disciples and the people, I would like to thank the benefactor." Luo Ren didn't reply politely, just smiled and nodded. Then he said to Taoist King Sun, "The matter here is over. It's time for me to say goodbye." Taoist King Sun stroked his beard gently, nodded slightly, and said, "Little donor, please be safe along the way." Different from the master's indifference, Zhang Ziyan was a little surprised when he heard that Luo Ren was leaving for the first time. He stepped forward and said in surprise, "Is Luo Shi going to leave the Cheyenne Wu Taoist sect?" Luo Ren said, "Yes, I have been away for nearly a month. I don't know how Chiang City is doing now. It's time to go back." As expected of a cultivator, although Zhang Ziyan was young, his character was not weak. He quickly put away his surprise and said calmly, "In that case, please take care of yourself, donor." "Take care," Luo Ren said, cupping his fists. After leaving the martial arts training ground, Luo Ren went straight to the dormitory building. Linya came with him. He was leaving, so naturally he had to ask Linya to see if she would stay or leave. He quickly came to the door of Linya's room, knocked on the door with bang bang bang, and then heard rapid footsteps and the words, "Here it comes." The door opened from the inside, and it was Linya who opened the door. Luo Ren saw the scene in the room, and Linya's parents were actually here. Lin Wen and Chen Jinhe were slightly startled when they saw that the person coming was Luo Ren. Then they stood up at the same time. Chen Jinhe stretched and said, "It's almost noon. Xiaoya, your dad and I will go back for a lunch break first." Linya and Luo Ren both knew what they meant. Linya's cheeks turned red instantly, but Luo Ren said quickly, "Uncle, aunt, don't leave yet. I came here to tell Xiaoya something, and this matter has nothing to do with you. The two are also related." Linya's parents looked at each other with expressions of surprise, which then turned into surprise. They immediately sat down, and Chen Jinhe said happily, okay, then Ronaldinho, please tell me quickly." Linya was a little confused at first, but when she saw the smiles on her parents' faces, her cheeks couldn't help but become more rosy. She was anxious, and said to herself, "No way, brother Luo really wants it. But I just think of him as my brother. Brother Xian is still waiting for me. Oh my god. What should I do? What should I do?" When she was thinking wildly, Luo Ren said, "Xiaoya, no. Linya shook her head repeatedly and said anxiously, "Brother Luo, we can't be together. I can't be sorry to Xian." "What?" Luo Ren was confused now. When did he say he wanted to be with her? Linya saw Luo Ren's confused look and asked doubtfully, "Brother Luo, don't you want to confess your love to me?" At the same time, Linya's parents put away their smiles and were filled with doubts. Luo Ren smiled helplessly and then said, "Xiaoya, you and Xian, everyone can see that, as the saying goes, a gentleman does not take away others' love. Although I'm not a gentleman, I understand this truth. I want to say that I plan to leave the Cheyenne Wu Dao sect. Will you stay here or leave with me?" It turns out it's not. Lin Ya touched her nose in embarrassment. She was silent for a long time before she realized what she was doing. She said in surprise, "Are you leaving the Cheyenne Wu Dao sect?" "That's right." Luo Ren nodded. Lin Ya remembered what she said to Li Xian when she left Yancheng. "Wait until I come back." Then she looked at her parents, struggling in her heart, not knowing how to choose for a while. Lin Ya's parents were at a loss when they heard that Luo Ren was leaving. They were obviously not prepared. But when they saw the struggle in their daughter's eyes, they knew that she was concerned about her heart. Maybe it was the pity she was talking about. Inflammation point. The two looked at each other and slightly. Lin Wen stood up and walked to his daughter and said, "Your mother and I are fine here. We don't have to worry about food or drink. We are safe and secure. You don't have to worry about us." Chen Jinhua also stepped forward, held Lin Yao's shoulders with both hands, and said with a smile, "If there are people who are reluctant to let go, then go ahead, and don't let yourself regret it." Lin Yao knew what her parents meant. She gritted her teeth and said, "Mom and Dad, you have to take care of yourselves here. This kid, your dad and I are decades old, and we still can't take care of ourselves. It's you who makes us worry. I still remember that when you were in the 3rd year of junior high school, you competed with those boys in climbing a tree and fell badly." Chen Jinhua arranged Lin Yao's clothes and kept mumbling. Although what she said was illogical, it sounded so sad. "What are you talking about?" Lin Wen, Lin Yao's father, scolded Chen Jinhua. Then he looked at Lin Yao, hesitated for a while, and finally said, "Be careful on the road." Then he said to Luo Ren, "Xiao Luo, I hope you will take more care of Xiaoya." Luo Ren nodded and said, "Don't worry, Xiaoya will be safe, as long as I'm here." Lin Wendao, sorry to trouble you. "No trouble." Luo Ren nodded again, then turned his gaze to Lin Yao and said, "Without further delay, let's go." Lin Yao nodded after hearing this, then reluctantly said goodbye to her parents for a while, and then left with Luo Ren. After her daughter left, Chen Jinhua finally couldn't help it. Tears kept falling from the corners of her eyes. Lin Wen's eyes also turned red at this moment, with tears swelling in them. Luo Ren and Lin Yao left the Xian Wu Dao sect and ran straight down the mountain. The zombies along the way had been cleared away when they came, and there was no obstruction at this time. Running halfway up the mountain, Luo Ren looked at both sides of the road, wondering what had happened to the two kind-hearted golden monkeys. Aha! At this moment, Ko arrived. A golden and red figure flashed before his eyes, and he saw a golden monkey holding an eyebrow-level stick blocking the way. Luo Ren was horrified when he saw the golden monkey. He saw that it was completely upright. If its hair was shaved off, it would look like a human. Its eyes were clear and bright. "Humans, you are not dead." This golden monkey suddenly opened its mouth, and what came out was not the chirping monkey language, but human language. Although it is not clear, if you listen carefully, it is human language. Luo Ren exclaimed, "Speaking human words and becoming a spirit?" Chapter 277. The pet I picked up. The breeze blew, rustling the leaves and making the clothes flutter in the wind. Read Google search TWKANA at this moment. Luo Ren and Lin Yao's breathing was stagnant, staring at the human-shaped golden monkey in front of them. Just a second ago, it actually spoke human language. Not only did it look like a fairy in the legend, but it also behaved more like a fairy. In fact, it is not uncommon for animals to speak human language. Luo Ren knew that birds such as parrots, starlings, and flower magpies could imitate human speech through training. However, this is just imitation, not autonomous consciousness. "Human, you are not dead." This is what the golden monkey said in front of him, a question, obviously from its inner thoughts. "Why don't you answer me?" The golden monkey spoke again. The words were unclear and intermittent, but in Luo Ren's ears, they could still form a complete sentence. He took a deep breath and suppressed the fear in his heart, but there was still some shock in his tone, and said, "If he is not dead, then he is not dead. So where is your companion?" He remembered that, when he went up the mountain, there was a pair of golden monkeys blocking the way, but now there was only one golden monkey, so he couldn't help but feel curious. When the golden monkey heard Luo Ren's question, it could not understand the meaning of the words at the first time. Instead, after a few seconds, its face was gloomy, and it made a famous gesture and said, "It's dying." "It's dying?" Luo Ren was surprised and asked, "Why?" "I'd killed." The golden monkey bent its palm into a claw, and then imitated the roar of a leopard, and said, "It's speaking of this." The golden monkey was so anxious that it scratched its ears and cheeks. It didn't know how to say the following things in human language. Finally, it squeezed out a sentence. You follow me, Luo." Ren looked at Linya and asked, "What do you think?" Linya had just recovered from the shock. When she heard the question, she looked confused. She pondered and thought, and then said, "I'll listen to you." Luo Ren frowned slightly, thought for a while, and then looked at the golden monkey and said, "Lead the way." After hearing this, the golden monkey waited for a few seconds, and then said, "Follow me, come." After that, it rushed into the jungle on the left, and Luo Ren and Linya quickly followed. Following the golden monkey through the forest, for about 1 or 2 minutes, several people rushed out of the jungle and saw a small lake. The water was clear and you could see fish swimming in it. The size of these fish was a circle larger than ordinary fish. It seems that after a virus, almost all creatures, except humans, are developing towards gigantism. I don't know whether the oxygen on the blue planet can support so many giant creatures. Looking across the lake and seeing the other side, I have to say that the golden monkey in front of me is really like a human. It actually built a small wooden house with wood, leaves, and vines. Although the workmanship is not very good, it looks good. The golden monkey was in front, and Luo Ren and Linya followed behind, walking around the lake shore. After jumping over a small stream about 1 meter wide, they walked for a while before they arrived under the wooden house. Luo Ren looked left and right, and the surrounding environment was in full view. Looking back at the wooden house, the golden monkey had already walked up the wooden steps to the door of the wooden house. After pushing the door open, it hooked its hand towards the two of them. "You stay here, I'll go take a look," Luo Ren said to Linya. Then he strode up the wooden steps to the wooden house, stood in front of the door and looked inside. He saw a golden monkey with red hair, more like a golden monkey, lying weakly, with 3 shocking wounds on its chest. Judging from the appearance of the wound, it should be injured by a sharp claw. Claws. The golden monkey who brought them here gestured and explained. Although only a few words could be understood, with its gestures, it was still possible to barely fill in the meaning it wanted to express. "It is seriously injured and needs treatment," Luo Ren said. "Please, save it. I'm willing." Perhaps the golden monkey saw the Taoist priests in the Cheyenne Wu Dao sect using the etiquette of holding fists and bowing, so he learned to salute Luo Ren, and mumbled incoherently. Although Luo Ren didn't hear it clearly, he saw its sincere expression, and didn't expect that animals have such feelings, while humans always like to eat each other. After a moment's silence, he said, "Take it with you, and go to Cheyenne Wu Dao sect with me. I will ask King Su and Zenran to treat it." "Thank you." The golden monkey was quite polite, and thanked him in a proper manner. Luo Ren said, "Okay, don't thank me. Take it with me." He walked down the wooden steps and returned to Linya, saying, "We have to go back to Cheyenne Wu Dao sect." Linya nodded, yes. At this time, the golden monkey had picked up his companion and came out of the wooden house. Seeing this, Luo Ren immediately set off and headed for the top of the mountain. In a short while, the 2 men and 2 monkeys arrived in front of the Cheyenne Wu Dao sect's mountain gate. The Cheyenne Wu Dao sect disciples who were hiding in the dark recognized Luo Ren, and they all withdrew their hidden weapons and walked out from the dark point. But when they saw the golden monkey with golden and red hair behind Luo Ren, they were all shocked, thinking that the golden monkey was following them alone and had bad intentions, and they hurriedly said, "Master Luo, be careful behind you." Luo Ren smiled lightly and said, "Young masters, don't be afraid. I brought them here, and they won't hurt humans. Don't worry, I won't kill you." The golden monkey said this with difficulty. "Oh my god, what a ghost." A young Taoist priest screamed in fear when he saw the golden monkey speaking human language, and then fainted. The rest of the people were also very frightened. One Taoist priest whispered, "You guys stay here, I will call the master." Luo Ren smiled helplessly. He was not surprised by the reaction of these Taoist priests. Even when he heard the golden monkey speak human words, he was shocked. In a short time. After an unknown amount of time, a sound broke through the air, and a figure came galloping over and stopped in front of Luo Ren and Linya. It was none other than Taoist King Suan. Luo Ren said respectfully, "Real person." Taoist King Suan nodded slightly, then looked past Luo Ren and saw the human-like golden monkey behind him. His eyes immediately became more vigilant and asked, "Little donor, what do you mean?" Luo Ren said, half a month ago, we encountered 2 golden monkeys blocking our way up the mountain. They kindly reminded us that there is a great evil on the mountain. Those 2 golden monkeys are now behind me. Luo Ren took a few steps back and stood side by side with the humanoid golden monkey. He pointed at the weak golden monkey in his arms and said, its companion is injured and dying. He came here to ask for help from the real person for treatment. Taoist. King Sen looked at the injured golden monkey and saw the shocking scars on its chest. There was no ripple in his eyes, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Upon seeing this, the humanoid golden monkey knelt down with a plop and said in broken human language, please save it. Taoist King Sen's eyes flashed with surprise. He saw the eyes of the humanoid golden monkey, which were clear and clean without any evil look. He finally sighed and said, Xianwu Dao has been established for thousands of years, and golden monkeys have also thrived in Xianwu Mountain for thousands of years. Come, we are neighbors. Come with me, I will try my best to save your companions. The humanoid golden monkey said, thank you. Then he, Luo Ren, and Lin Ya followed Taoist King Sen point. When they came to the medicine hall, Taoist King Sen personally rescued the injured golden monkey. Although most of the treatments were for humans in the past, different approaches led to the same goal. The theory of muscles and veins in the ancient medicine of Xia state cannot be copied to animals, but herbs and the like can. Therefore, treatment can also be implemented. Medicine hall. Taoist priests and ordinary people who were coming and going stepped aside when they saw the human-shaped golden monkey. With a look of fear in their eyes, Luo Ren stared at the golden monkey for a long time, then asked, do you have a name? Name. The golden monkey was confused and confused. Luo Ren smiled and said, since there is no such thing, then I will give you a name. It is fate that we meet each other. How about calling you Monkey Yuan? The golden monkey nodded blankly, as if it had a name in a daze. At the same time, Taoist King Sen came out of the back room and said as he walked, the injury is serious, but it is not fatal. What? How? Yuan scratched his head and ears, not understanding what Taoist King Sen meant. Luo Ren thought for a moment and explained, your companion will not die. How? Yuan was immediately pleasantly surprised, scratching his head and ears again, and then knelt down in front of Taoist King Sen, kowtowing in thanks. Get up. Monks are not immune to this. Taoist King Sen helped Hao Yuan up and then said to Luo Ren, although it is not life-threatening, it will take a long time to fully recover. Luo Ren clasped his fists and said, well, sorry for the trouble, master. Now that this matter has been resolved, let's take our leave. Taoist King Sen nodded slightly and said, take care. Luo Ren and Lin Ya strode away from the medicine hall. After walking a few steps, Luo Ren suddenly turned around. He saw Hao Yuan following closely behind him, and immediately asked, why are you following us? Hao Yuan made hurried gestures and said, just now, save it. I and you. The language it speaks is too abstract for Luo Ren to understand, and its gestures are not human mute. The simple ones can be used universally, the more complex ones can be barely guessed, and the too complicated ones are incomprehensible. At this time, Taoist King Sen walked out of the medicine hall and said with a smile, little donor, it means that you saved its friend, and it wants to follow you, and you are its master. Master. Hao Yuan has sharp ears and is very smart. When he heard what Taoist King Sen said, he immediately grasped the key point and repeated the word master. Recognize. The master, Luo Ren did not expect that his kind deeds would make Hao Yuan recognize him as his master. Judging from the speed at which Hao Yuan ran, it should be a quasi level 3 evolved animal. He had no reason to refuse such a powerful pet. He laughed and then said, in that case, then you can follow me. After hearing this, Hao Yuan immediately scratched his head and ears with joy. Without stopping for too long, the two of them quickly went down the mountain, followed the original road, and found the car parked on the side of the road. Without saying a word, they got in the car, started the car, then turned around, put on the gas pedal, and drove away. Chapter 278. The storm has arrived. Chiang City, Eastgate. Read. After nearly a month of clear skies, we finally got a heavy downpour today. The huge city gate is entirely made of steel and is extremely strong. There is a small door on the lower right side of the city gate to facilitate daily entry and exit. Inside the gate, there are duty posts and a special building registration room, which is actually a small bungalow. The people inside are responsible for registering daily travel and new population. At this moment, the atmosphere in the registration room is solemn, because several big figures in the city are here, such as Suan Tong, Luo Shan, Shashap, etc. In addition to these big shots, there are also many people with sad faces, who look like ordinary residents. Report. At this moment, words with a long pronunciation rushed into the house, and then a sky marcher ran in, and then said, report. The resident hunting team Tiger Spot returned with 5 deaths and 2. When Suan Tong heard this, he frowned and said, bring them here. Yes. The soldiers of the Sky Marching Army went out for a while, and soon brought over the members of the Tiger Spot resident hunting team. There were only 2 of them, and they both looked very embarrassed. What's going on? Suan Tong asked. We encountered hundreds of corpses during our hunting trip, and only the 2 of us escaped. The speaker was called Li Meng, the captain of the hunting team of Tiger Spotted residents. When he talked about the reason, his face was full of sorrow. It's a group of corpses again. Suan Tong frowned and looked at the dozen or so people in the house, who were in a panic. These people were all members of the resident hunting team. They all went out hunting, and encountered a group of corpses. Only a few people escaped alive. Sky Point. The hunting space of these hunting teams is only 20 kilometers in radius with Chiang City as the center. Because of the existence of Chiang City, there is almost no threat of zombies in this 20-kilometer radius. Occasionally seen, they are ordinary people wandering aimlessly. There are not many zombies, less than 100. If just 1 or 2 hunting teams encounter hundreds of corpses, then it's not a big deal. Maybe it's just a coincidence. However, the dozens of hunting teams that went out today came back one after another. Counting the Tiger Spotted hunting teams, there were already 13 teams, all of which encountered groups of hundreds of corpses. This was something that would never happen in the past. After thinking hard for a while, Suan Tong had no choice but to give up. Zombie movements were always so random. Moreover, Luo Ren was not in Chiang City right now, and her duty was to protect Chiang City. Naturally, she would not send out the army to detect zombie movements, causing unnecessary losses. We can only order Saudi Arabia. Starting from today, the resident hunting team is not allowed to go out. Yes. Saudi responded. Suan Tong took another look at the embarrassed looking members of the hunting team, and then said, count how many people died, and who they were. If there are family members, food subsidies will be given to their families. If they are alone, they will be sent to school. Subsidize those students who have no father or mother, and are temporarily unable to work. Saudi said, yes. Seeing this, Suan Tong turned around, and left the registration room, walked to the car with an umbrella, and then got in. After the car started, she looked out the window in surprise. Maybe she was missing Luo Ren. Wasteland Military Zone. Braving the pouring rain, Zhao Chuan personally took command and said loudly, Zhang Chen, please bring a few people to repair the defenses here. Point and Levy, quickly bring in bullets and cannonballs to replenish them. God knows if there will be zombie attacks. The Wasteland Military District has just experienced a major war, which can be seen from the scorched earth and zombie corpses outside the defense line of the military district. Point. In fact, there was not just one battle, but 3 battles in just one morning, all of which were attacked by zombies. These zombies did not use fishing tactics like before. Point. They have no tactics and just attack hard. There are a lot of level 1 zombies and nearly level 2 zombies. There are also a handful of level 2 zombies, and there are also nearly level 3 zombies leading the charge. Fortunately, the Wasteland military region is not alone this time. Behind them is the support of the Jiangnan military region, which has powerful weapons such as armed helicopters. Even if faced with nearly level 3 zombies, or even real level 3 zombies attacking the city, it can still resist, and will not fall easily. Buzz the engine roared, and an off-road vehicle drove from the military area, and parked next to Zhao Chuan. The backseat window was lowered, revealing Liu Yangnian's face. Zhao Chuan immediately saluted and said, Commander. Liu Yangnian asked, how is the battle going? Zhao said. The 3 zombie sieges were all on a large scale, and they were all led by pseudo level 3 zombies. Their offensive was not like the previous ones that wasted us, but it was swift and fierce, regardless of losses, and they wanted to capture it in one fell swoop. If it weren't for us, the weapons and equipment previously supported by the military region may no longer be able to withstand it. Liu Yangnian looked ahead and saw zombie corpses everywhere outside the defense line under the torrential rain. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he said to himself, the storm has arrived. Then he looked at Zhao and asked, how many more battles can our ammunition last? Zhao thought for a while and said, the ammunition for small arms is still sufficient, but the missiles and cannon ammunition of the Z-10, as well as the shells of individual artillery, are consumed very quickly. According to the consumption in previous battles, it can last up to 5 games like this. A battle of scale, it will take at least a day for the materials from the Grand Military Region to arrive here, and the materials from the Grand Military Region are also relatively tight, and they have the same application as ours from the Military Region. If we ask for it now, it will definitely not be approved immediately. In this way, after thinking for a long time, Liu Yangnian's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, yes, Zhao, please call a Z-10 to Chiang City and ask for ammunition. Commander, we haven't got the ammunition we borrowed last time. Zhao looked embarrassed. In his heart, he thought, the commander is treating Chiang City as a free ammunition ATM, and he can borrow it whenever he wants. Liu Yangnian was thick-skinned enough, saying, I gave my daughter to Luo Ren, so it's not too much to ask him to borrow some ammunition. Zhao shrugged, and could only respond, I understand, I'll leave now. On the highway, a car was speeding. Luo Ren was driving, Lin Ya was observing the roadside signs, and Hao Yuan was sleeping soundly in the back seat. He had no vigilance at all, and he was not afraid that the 2 humans in front would go crazy and smash his skull and dig out his evolution crystal point. Suddenly, Lin Ya shouted, Shuang County, we have entered Shuang County, Shuang County. Luo Ren repeated, and then thought of Lao Chen, Lin Fang, and the group of children, and sighed. I wonder if brother Lao Chen and sister Lin Fang have successfully arrived in Yancheng. Lin Ya was optimistic about this, and said with certainty, brother Lao Chen and his friends must have arrived in Yancheng. We will see them when we return to Yancheng. Luo Ren smiled and nodded, agreeing, yes, they must have arrived in Yancheng, and then told Ziyan, Zizu, Uncle Lin Wu, and others about us. Yes, yes. Lin Ya nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Chapter 279 Interest, Part 1. Driving the vehicle forward, a red car with peeling paint and rust appeared on the roadside ahead. Luo Ren subconsciously took a look. When he retracted his gaze, he happened to see the blue cover on the front desk of the car, with the 3 big characters Wuangong written on it. I couldn't help but think of Wuang Manor and the master and apprentice Carolan who were killed by him that day. Since he got the Wuangong secret book, he only took a look at it at the beginning. Later, he arrived at Xianwu Mountain and entered the Xianwu Dao sect to learn swordsmanship and boxing from Kingsu and Zenren, and then forgot about Wuangong. Now seeing it again, it can't help but arouse his curiosity. The system said that there is no practice, and the practice that Kingsu and Taoist said is not the practice of cultivating immortals. And from Carolan's point of view, the practice of Wuang Mana can really enhance physical fitness. Let's go to Shuang service area first and make plans. Luo Ren said in his heart. The accelerator was stepped onto the bottom, and the vehicle reached the maximum speed. Having entered Shuang County, it was naturally not far from the Shuang service area. After driving at full speed for about 20 minutes, the familiar service area building came into viewpoint. The car speed was reduced and entered the service area. At this time, the rain changed from pouring to hazy, and the scene of the soul-breaking Qingming festival was revealed. Luo Ren and Lin Ya got out of the car. Hao Yuan felt that the car stopped and woke up from his sleep. He held the car window with both hands and looked out of the window. His 2 big eyes were full of curiosity. Luo Ren looked at the open door of the service area, and the images of Lao Chen, Lin Fang and others appeared in his eyes involuntarily. A smile appeared on his face and he walked into the supermarket. After entering the supermarket, He couldn't help but frown when he saw the scene inside. In his impression, although it was not excellent, it was not messy. At this time, it was a mess. The big aluminum the pot was smashed flat, and the walls of the compartments were full of holes of various sizes. Obviously, after they left, someone came here, most likely someone from Wuang village, otherwise they wouldn't smash things so violently. Who are you? Suddenly, Linya's scolding sounded outside. Luo Ren listened attentively and heard footsteps and the sound of touching guns, and hurriedly turned around and walked out of the supermarket. As soon as he stepped out of the supermarket, he saw more than a dozen burly men holding guns surrounded Lin Yao in the car. "Girl, you look pretty, come and play with me." A man walked towards Lin Yao with a lewd smile on his face, and at the same time, reached out to touch Lin Yao's face. The man's dozen accomplices also had lewd expressions on their faces, and kept saying obscene words. When Lin Yao saw the dirty claws coming over, anger appeared on her face. Her eyes suddenly became sharp, and without saying a word, she raised her foot and kicked it directly into the man's crotch. Bang! A dull sound spread, and the man was frozen, as if he had been cast a spell. After a few seconds, he suddenly covered his crotch with both hands, fell to the ground and rolled, and burst into a piercing scream like a pig being slaughtered. The man's accomplices saw this scene and all subconsciously turned sideways to protect their important parts after a pig-like howl. The man's eyes went black, and he fainted. There was a moment of silence at the scene, and someone mustered up the courage. This person was slightly fat, and had a face full of flesh. He pointed the black muzzle of the gun at Lin Yao and said fiercely, "Don't do anything tricky, bitch, or I will shoot you to death." Lin Yao had a blank expression on her face, and stared at the man coldly. The man thought Lin Yao was scared and dared not move. He smiled coldly, then looked at his companions and ordered, "You, go and tie up this little bitch, and find a safe place later, so that we brothers can have a good time." This aroused the lust of others, especially the man who was pointed at. He looked at Lin Yao, and swallowed his saliva hungrily, and walked forward with a lewd smile. When he saw his accomplice who had fainted on the ground, he subconsciously turned sideways, just like a crab. Hao Yuan watched in the car for a while, and knew that these humans were not good things. He immediately jumped out of the car window, and flashed in front of Lin Yao. They stared at each other, and suddenly, someone shouted in fear, "Monster, run!" More than a dozen people panicked, and fled in all directions, and the crab man also reacted and wanted to escape, but was grabbed by Hao Yuan's clothes. He quickly took off his coat, but Hao Yuan grabbed his gun again. He gritted his teeth, and gave up the gun. Then Hao Yuan grabbed his hair. He then pulled out the dagger from his waist, and cut his hair directly, thinking that he could escape. Just when he was overjoyed, a hairy hand was placed on his shoulder. The hand clamped his shoulder like an iron clamp, and he couldn't break free. Even if he used all his strength in this way, he couldn't take off his shoulder, so he could only look back at Hao Yuan, forcing a smile that was uglier than crying, and said, "Monster grandpa, you see I'm so thin, without any fat or water, it's not delicious. Please let me go. I like to eat lean meat." Hao Yuan said, opening his mouth wide, revealing his sharp canine teeth. "Oh my god, speak human language, it's a spirit." The crab man was so scared that he fainted. Hao Yuan threw him away, and looked at the others who were running away. Just as he was about to chase them, Luo Ren dodged in front of him and said, "No need to chase them." "But they, bully." Hao Yuan made a famous gesture, pointing at the people who ran away, and then pointed at Lin Yao. Luo Ren waved his hand and said, "It's okay, let them run. Those who deserve to die will definitely die." His eyes fell on the two people who had fainted on the ground. One of them was probably disabled by the fatal chicken beating, and he didn't know if he could recover. The crab-like man was knocked unconscious by fright, and it won't take long for him to wake up. Judging from their firearms, they should be from Wuangxiang, which was just right. He had originally intended to go to Wuangxiang, and now he had someone to lead the way. Her hair was wet from the drizzle. Luo Ren's short hair was better and not uncomfortable. Lin Yao and Hao Yuan were different. One girl had long hair and the other had hair all over her body. Seeing this scene, Luo Ren said, "Let's go to the supermarket to take shelter from the rain." Picking up one of the crabman's legs and dragging it away, he saw the man who had given up the incense again, and then said, "How Yuan, I'll give this guy to you." How Yuan waved his hands repeatedly and explained, "I don't eat human flesh. I didn't ask you to eat him, just dispose of him as you like." Luo Ren said, then glanced at Lin Ya and said, "Let's go, Xiaoya, let's go to the supermarket to take shelter from the rain." Watching Luo Ren and Lin Ya enter the supermarket, Hao Yuan retracted his gaze and looked at the broken egg man on the ground. He scratched his cheek, then grabbed the ankle of the broken egg man, used all his strength, threw it away, and patted it. He clapped his hands and stammered, as if he was possessed by the fourth brother, saying, "It's done, it's done." Then, it jumped and hurriedly got into the supermarket. Now only the fur on its face is wet. After a while, the fur on the inside will also be wet. That guy will feel uncomfortable. Chapter 280 Interested, Part 2. Shuayang Service Area. Among supermarkets, Reed Lin Ya saw the crab man lying on the ground, with undisguised disgust in her eyes. Then she looked at Luo Ren and asked in confusion, "Brother Luo, why don't you kill those beasts? The damned person will definitely die. There is no need for us to do it ourselves." Luo Ren said. Lin Ya was still puzzled. She pointed at the crab man on the ground and asked, "What about this man? Why didn't you kill him and take him into the supermarket? Are you, Brother Luo, still worried that he has caught a cold?" "Of course not." Luo Ren denied it directly and then asked, "Xiaoya, do you still remember Wuang village?" Lin Ya thought for a while, nodded, and said, "Remember, the people who caused trouble for Sister Lin Fang and the others that day were the people from Wuang village." Luo Ren nodded and continued, "If I remember correctly, the weapons used by that group just now are exactly the same as those used by the Wuangxian people before." Lin Ya was a little surprised after hearing this, and immediately asked, "Are you saying that the group of people just now, and this guy on the ground, are from Wuang village?" 80%, yes. Luo Ren nodded, then smiled and said, "Wuangxiang is causing harm to everyone. I would like to go there." The words were just superficial words. In fact, his purpose was that he became interested in Wuang village from the moment Lao Chen told him that Wuang village had a population of 100,000. There is also Wuangong. Whether this thing is real or fake, you have to go to Wuangxiang to find out. Lin Ya was very confident in Luo Ren's strength. She was not surprised when he said he wanted to go to Wuang village, and she did not say anything to stop him because she didn't think anyone in the so-called Wuang village could stop Luo Ren. Hao Yuan was listening on the side. In the fog, it could only speak simple words, but could not understand the more complicated ones. Its ears suddenly moved, and it looked at the crab man on the ground. The crab man groaned softly and slowly opened his eyes, and suddenly a furry face came into view, which scared him so much that he screamed, "Ah, monster!" The second before he fainted, Luo Ren lifted him up and threatened, "If you faint again, I will strip you naked and tie you up in the wild, and let all kinds of snakes, insects, rats, ants, and evolved animals eat you alive. Flesh, drink your blood, break your heavenly spirit cap, and suck your brain." "No, no, no," the crab man said urgently. "Sir, please spare my life, my lord, please spare my life." Luo Ren raised the corner of his mouth and then let go of the crab man's collar. He fell to his knees on the ground, kowtowed for mercy with a face full of fear, and kept shouting, "Sir, have mercy on me, my lord, have mercy." This head was knocked hard, making a bang 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 sound. Within a few knocks, the crab man's forehead turned red and his eyes became confused. "Okay." Luo Ren stopped him. "Don't faint if you wait. You will have to wait for a while." When the crab man heard this, he stopped kowtowing and fell on the ground, still chanting, "Sir, spare my life." Luo Ren said, "It is not impossible to survive. As long as you answer my questions honestly, I can consider letting you go." When the crab man heard this, he felt as if he had seen a life-saving straw. Hope lit up in his eyes, so he tried hard to grasp it and said anxiously, "I will answer honestly." Luo Ren pondered for a moment, then asked calmly, "Are you from Wuang village?" The crab man didn't hesitate at all, nodded wildly like a chicken pecking at rice, and replied, "Yes." Okay. Luo Ren was very satisfied with this, and then asked, how many evolved humans are there in Wuang village, and how strong are they, evolved humans? The crab man was puzzled. After thinking for a while, he asked cautiously, you are talking about practitioners, right? This should be the name in Wuang village, Luo Ren thought, then nodded and said, that's right. The crab man breathed a sigh of relief and replied, the specific number of practitioners in the village is impossible for a little guy like me to know. However, there is public information that the owner of the village, Li Yang, and the deputy owner of the village, Kinj, are both practitioners, and both are powerful practitioners. It is circulated internally that the owner of the village is a strong person in the late stage of martial arts, and the deputy owner of the village is also in the late stage of martial arts. There are also 7 elders, among whom the first elder, second elder, and third elder are all in the warrior realm. As for whether they are in the early, middle, or late stages, I don't know. Then there are the 4th elder, the 5th elder, the 6th elder, and the 7th elder. They are all half-step warriors. Among them, the 5th elder was killed when he went out. Apart from these, the village owner's disciples, the elder's disciples, etc. Don't know. What about village owners, elders, warriors? After hearing this, Luo Ren just felt that Wuang village was too good to be true. The real 1000-year-old sect, Cheyenne Wu Dao sect, had no elders at all, only one leader. The common seniority can be seen from the names. For example, Zhang Xian's type setting is Xian, and the young Taoist Chen Zihuan's type setting is Xian Point, but the sect of the Immortal Master. From this it can be seen that the character Zhi is 2 generations lower than the character Xian, so Chen Zihuan has to call Zhang Xian his master. It can be seen that Zhang Xian is young, but his seniority is not low. In the Cheyenne Wu Taoist sect, many Taoist priests who are older than him have to call him uncle or master. Luo Ren meditated secretly, using Kairoulan as a reference, to convert the warriors and evolve as mentioned by the crab man, and soon came to the result that the owner and deputy owner of Wuang village were both advanced level 2 evolvers. None of the elders are above level 2. Such a Linup is nothing to be afraid of. Even if the opponent has tens of thousands of troops and no one can restrain him, he can leave as he pleases, and stay as he pleases. This so-called Wuang village can be visited once. Thinking back, he asked, where is Wuang Manor located? Is it far from here? The crab man said, not far. It's less than 5 kilometers from here to Wuang Manor. Blinking, he asked cautiously, sir, are you planning to go to our Wuang Manor? Luo Ren said calmly, yes, I'm going to Wuang Manor. If you want to go, I can lead the way. With your ability, if you join Wuang Manor, the owner will definitely give you the position of elder. The crab man said attentively. Luo Ren looked at the crab man and suddenly smiled, saying, oh, is that so? The crab man said anxiously, our owner values talents the most. He often says that high positions need talented and capable people. It happens that you are such a person, sir. Okay. Luo Ren nodded and said, in this case, let's do it without delay. He said to the crab man, you go outside and wait for me. Remember not to try to escape, otherwise you will see wild beasts tearing your flesh and poisonous insects sucking your brain. The crab man felt terrified when he thought about that scene. He trembled all over and said, don't worry, sir, I will never run away. After the crab man left, Luo Ren looked at Lin Yao and Hao Yuan, deliberately lowered his voice and whispered, you wait here for me, I will be back soon. Hao Yuan said, yes master. Lin Yao nodded and warned, brother Luo, you must pay attention to safety. Luo Ren smiled slightly, and walked out of the supermarket with big strides. The crab man did not run away, but stood in the rain, and waited quietly. Luo Ren said, let's go. Chapter 281 The Fourth Elder, Part 1. Turn off the highway and through woodland onto a country lane. Read search TWKAN on Google. Luo Ren looked at both sides of the road. There were many abandoned vehicles and bones. He guessed that there should be people traveling on this road frequently, most likely people from Wuang's Huang Point. He didn't need to think too much. The crab man who led the way gave the answer directly and said, this road was cleared by our Wuang village to facilitate hunting. Luo Ren slightly, and said nothing. The crab man then looked around, couldn't help but frown, and said cautiously, "My companions have driven away. Let's go to Wuangxiang here. Is it far or near? Sir, what do you think we should do?" After pondering for a moment, Luo Ren said, "You said this place is only 5 kilometers away from Wuang village. It is such a short distance that you can do it without a vehicle. Please lead the way." The crab man did not dare to object and immediately responded, "Yes." Then, he stepped forward to lead the way. Luo Ren was a level 3 evolver with extremely fast legs, far better than an ordinary person. Seeing that he was too slow, he urged him to run. Naturally, the crab man didn't dare not run, so he immediately took steps. About 20 minutes later, the journey was already halfway through. At this moment, Luo Ren suddenly heard the roar of the engine. Looking ahead, he saw a convoy, a military off-road vehicle in front of it, and its pure gold spray paint should be the rear. Made point after the off-road vehicles are a number of military green transport vehicles. The crab man saw the golden sub and shouted excitedly, "It's the 4th elder." Hearing that he was the 4th elder of Wuang village, Luo Ren stared at the oncoming golden sub with interest and stood straight in the middle of the road without any intention of moving. The golden off-road vehicle had no intention of slowing down or stopping and seemed to be about to hit it directly. Luo Ren's face was expressionless and there was no wave in his eyes, but the crab man was different. His face was full of fear and he persuaded, "Sir, let's step aside." No matter how he tried to persuade him, Luo Ren remained unmoved and waited for the vehicle to hit him. In the crab man's eyes, the golden off-road vehicle quickly zoomed in. His legs went weak. Just when he thought he was about to be hit by the car, he suddenly squeaked. The car braked suddenly, and the wheels scraped a black mark against the ground. Then it stopped less than 2 meters away, causing water to splash on the ground. The crab man was so frightened that he broke into a cold sweat. The moment the car stopped, he collapsed to the ground and almost fainted again. Click, the door of the golden off-road vehicle opened, and a muscular man who looked like a fitness instructor got out of the car, then walked quickly to Luo Ren, pushed out with a palm, and shouted, "Asshole, who asked you to block the road?" The man's arms are very thick and full of bulging muscles. A casual push of his palm can weigh 500 to 600 kilograms. However, when his palm pushes on the shoulder of the person in front of him, it is like pushing against a wall. On the other side, the opponent didn't move at all, but the reaction force made his hand numb. "Practitioner?" The man was surprised. Although the man in front of him was not thin, he was not strong either. He could not move at all under his horizontal push. He was definitely not an ordinary person. Besides, ordinary people would not be stupid enough to stand in the middle of the road and block cars. He put away the contempt in his eyes and pushed out his palms, looked at the person in front of him up and down, and asked, "Who are you, Your Excellency, and why are you blocking the road?" Luo Ren grinned and said, "I'm just a passerby. I heard that Wuang village is huge and the owner Li Yang is extremely powerful. I can't help but feel itchy and want to go to Wuang village to compete with him." After hearing this, the man didn't know how to answer. Suddenly he saw the crab man lying on the ground. Seeing the orange triangle embroidered on his collar, he knew that he was from Wuangxiang, and he thought, the soldier who just returned, said that he met a strange survivor in the service area, a beautiful woman, and a monkey-like monster that spoke human words. He looked past the person in front of him, and saw the direction this person was coming from. He was suddenly startled, and then became confused and said, "It's said to be a woman, but this is actually a man." He frowned and thought for a while, and suddenly his eyes lit up, and he felt something in his heart. He answered, "Yes, that hairy monkey-like monster should be this man in disguise. Otherwise how could he be uttering human words?" Thinking that the answer in his mind was 100% correct, he involuntarily took a few steps back to put some distance between him and Luo Ren. After thinking about it, a smile appeared on his face. He clasped his fists and cupped his hands and said, "I'm sitting down with the 4th elder Feng Bao of Wuang village. Your Excellency, Chief Disciple, Xiao Gang, do you know your surname?" Luo Ren said calmly, "Luo Ren. It turns out to be Brother Luo, haha." Xiao Gang chuckled and said, "Brother Luo is going to Wuang village to compete with the owner of my village. I'm afraid it will be difficult. The owner of the village never receives unknown people." He paused for a while, rolled his eyes, and then said, However, I have a way to let you see the owner of the village. Oh. Luo Ren said in surprise. Can you take me to see the owner of Wuang village? Zhao Gang quickly waved his hand and said, I'm a humble person. How can I bring people to meet the owner of the village at will? He glanced at the golden sub behind him and said, although I can't do it, the guy in the car behind me can. If brother Luo needs it, I can ask master to take you to meet the village owner. After listening to Zhao Gang's words, Luo Ren had a look of surprise on his face and said, that's very good. Zhao Gang smiled slightly and said, brother Luo, wait a moment. After that, he turned around and walked to the backseat window of the golden off-road vehicle, knocked on the window glass, lowered the window, and the person in the car leaned on the seat, glanced sideways at him, and asked indifferently, why? Why don't you just kill me and talk nonsense for so long? This person is none other than the fourth elder of Wuang village, Feng Bao. Facing Feng Bao, Zhao Gang looked respectful and did not dare to slack off at all, saying, Master, that man is a practitioner, and the disciple analyzed that he is the monster in the service area that the soldiers said. Feng Bao turned his head and looked without speaking, but just by looking at him, Zhao Gang knew what he wanted to know and hurriedly replied, first, the person traveling with that person is a disciple of my Wuang village. Second, they are here, the direction is the service area point, and the soldiers who came back said that the monster was talking human words. In my opinion, if it was talking human words, it must be the man pretending to be a monster. The fourth elder, Feng Bao, withdrew his gaze, nodded slightly, and said, your analysis makes sense. If so, then subdue him and ask him about the whereabouts of his woman. Zhao Gang heard this, but did not move. Feng Bao looked at him again, with the same look. He hurriedly explained, Master, that man's strength is higher than that of the disciple, and the disciple cannot subdue him. After a pause, he continued, also, the man uttered wild words, saying that he wanted to compete with the village hub. A trace of surprise flashed in Feng Bao's eyes, and then he rolled his eyes and said, in that case, I will give him a try. Upon hearing this, Zhao Gang immediately opened the car door and owner said respectfully, Master, please. Chapter 280 to the Fourth Elder, Part 2. Under Luo Ren's gaze, Zhao Gang stood next to the car, hunched over, groveling, and whispered something flatteringly. Then he opened the door and saw a man who looked to be in his 30s, not much older than Zhao Gang. After getting off the car, I guess it was the so-called fourth elder, Feng Bao. Weed Toil Bao came straight over and stopped 1 meter away, his weasel-like eyes scanning his whole body without any concealment. Feng Bao suddenly took a step forward, stretched out his hand, and said, hello, I'm the fourth elder of Wuang village, Feng Bao. There was no expression on his face, and his words were like mechanical and electronic sounds without any human emotions. Luo Ren didn't care about this. He immediately stretched out his right hand to shake his hand and said, Luo Ren. As soon as he finished saying his name, he felt the opponent's palm suddenly exert strength. In almost 1 second, the strength of an ordinary person rose to that of a quasi level 2 evolver. Luo Ren sneered in his heart and said to himself, this is testing me. If this is the case, then Feng Bao was horrified in his heart. He knew how strong he was. Even a martial artist in the later stage would be so painful that he would break into a cold sweat if he pinched him like this. However, this Luo Ren had a relaxed look on his face. Suddenly, he saw the corner of Luo Ren's mouth raised a slight arc point. Immediately afterwards, he felt his hand being wrapped and squeezed by a huge force, and faintly heard a click, which was the sound of broken bones. Suddenly, heartbreaking pain hit him, causing large beads of sweat to break out on his forehead. Although he tried his best to control it, his expression still changed. Seeing the constipation-like expression on his face, Luo Ren felt very happy. After about a few seconds, he smiled lightly, took the initiative to let go, and asked with concern, are you okay? Feng Bao's face turned red, and his right hand was shaking with pain. He could no longer make a fist with his right hand. He could clearly feel that the hammered bone was more than a little broken. It would probably take 2 or 3 months to fully recover. At this moment, he hated not Luo Ren, but himself, and even more, Zhao Gang. If it weren't for Luo Gang, he wouldn't have gotten out of the car and wouldn't have thought of testing Luo Ren. With this thought in mind, he turned back to look at Luo Gang, his eyes gloomy, hiding murderous intent. Luo Gang saw his master's face flushed and immediately knew that he had suffered a loss, and his heart suddenly pounded. Feng Bao said he was his master, but in fact he had superiors, subordinates, and interests. Moreover, he knew that Feng Bao was a man who would retaliate. But Feng Bao's retribution is rather special. He never targets those who are stronger than him, but only targets those who are weaker than him. In fact, it means bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Luo Gang's revenge can be avenged later. After Feng Bao knew that Luo Ren was stronger than him, he did not dare to neglect and immediately turned around. His originally expressionless and cold face was now full of flattery, and his tone was full of flattery. He was also very flattering and said, "Young people have eyes, but don't know Mount A. I hope the adults will understand." My unscrupulous man said that you want to go to Wuang village to compete with the owner of the village. Do you want me to introduce you? This guy can change his face faster than a woman. Luo Ren complained in his heart and then said calmly, "That's right. Are you willing?" Feng Bao said hurriedly, "I'm willing. Of course I am. It is a great honor for me to be able to work for someone like you, sir." He suddenly moved, then turned sideways, endured the pain, and made a gesture of invitation, and said, "Please get in the car quickly. We will go back to the village right now." Luo Ren smiled softly, did not refuse, strode towards the golden SUV, and then sat directly in the back seat. Feng Bao followed up quickly. Before getting into the car, he glared at Luo Gang and said, "Go and sit in the car behind." Feng Bao's tone was very calm, but in Luo Gang's ears, it was so cold that it made him shudder. After getting on the bus, facing Luo Ren, Feng Bao immediately changed his face, smiling brightly, and said to the driver in front, "Notify everyone to turn around and go back to the village." Yes, although he had such a kind expression, the driver didn't think Feng Bao was really like this. He responded quickly without even hesitating for half a second. Then he picked up the car walkie-talkie, pressed the call button, and said, "The elder has ordered us to turn around and go back to the village." A moment after the words fell, the intercom rang one after another. "Roger that." The vehicles then started. First the transport vehicle behind them turned around, and finally the golden off-road vehicle Luo Ren was riding in. The motorcade set off in a mighty manner, and the crab man was completely forgotten. He slumped alone in the middle of the road, and the drizzle in his pupils gradually turned into a heavy rain like beads on the golden cross country. Bao's hands were still shaking, and the pain kept hitting his brain, but the flattery on his face did not diminish. He cautiously asked, "I wonder where the Lord comes from?" Luo Ren glanced at him and said, "If I said that I came down from the sky, would you believe it?" "Trust." Feng Bao nodded solemnly, with a serious face, and said, "Your Excellency is graceful and talented. At first glance, I felt that your Excellency was like an immortal. As expected, the Lord is really a banished immortal from heaven." Luo Ren was stunned for a moment, a little speechless. This man was so good at flattering. If he hadn't stopped doing this, he would have been really happy. Seeing that Luo Ren didn't speak, and his expression didn't change, Feng Bao felt anxious in his heart and thought to himself, "Did I speak poorly and hit the horse's hoof? What a mouth." The second Luo Ren didn't speak, the more he wanted to slap himself in the mouth, and the more anxious he became, but there was nothing he could do but pray silently. Luo Ren is not angry. I don't know if his prayer took effect or something else. After being silent for nearly a minute, Luo Ren finally spoke and said, "I heard that your village owner, Li Yang, is in the late warrior stage." When Luo Ren spoke, Feng Bao breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly replied, "There is a rumor among us at the lower level that the owner of the village is a late-stage martial artist. In fact, the owner of the village has now reached the half-step martial arts realm." "Half-step martial artist realm?" Luo Ren frowned slightly, then relaxed quickly, thinking the so-called half-step martial artist should be a quasi level 3 evolver, knowing The true strength of the owner of Wuang village, Luo Ren, was not worried about it, but as a quasi level 3 evolver, this was nothing to a true level 3 evolver. Then he asked again, I heard from your soldiers that your deputy village leader Kinj is also a late stage warrior. Could it be that this is also a lie? Feng Bao said, this is not false. The deputy village owner is indeed a late stage warrior. Kinj, this name should be a woman. What is her relationship with Li Yang? Luo Ren asked. As soon as these words came out, even the driver's interest was piqued, and he couldn't help but glance at the rear view mirror. At the third glance, he saw Feng Bao's eyes in the rear view mirror. He was extremely horrified and didn't dare to another peek. After Feng Bao shocked the driver, he immediately withdrew his eyes and did not dare to hide anything. In fact, there was nothing to hide, because even the laborers in Wuangshang knew it. He said, the relationship between the owner and the deputy owner is very subtle. I don't know much about it. I have only heard some rumors. Before the world became like this, the owner had been chasing the deputy owner. It was a stalker. That kind of thing, but the deputy owner never agreed. And after the world became like this, the deputy village owner didn't know why he just agreed. Rumor has it that the village owner rushed into the group of corpses regardless of life and death, and saved the life of the deputy village owner. The deputy village owner agreed to be with the village owner because of the grace of saving his life. The driver looked ahead while driving. He was a little disappointed when he heard what Feng Bao said. He thought it was some secret, but he didn't expect that it was also a rumored story. Luo Ren said, it seems that your village owner is still a kind and righteous person. Feng Bao smiled and was about to answer when he suddenly saw the front and said, Sir, we are here. Chapter 283 Harsh. His sight passed through the windshield and fell to the front. It was a city. Naturally, it was far inferior to Chiang City in terms of scale, but it was not inferior to the #1 sanctuary city of the Wasteland Kingdom. Read from this point of view, it is not false that Wuangshang has a population of more than 100,000. Thinking of this, the corners of Luo Ren's mouth raised slightly point against his will. He praised, the city wall is tall and thick, and it must be as solid as iron. The soldiers are tall and straight, their morale is high, and their fighting power must be powerful. It is indeed Wuang village, and it is indeed worthy of its reputation. Such a compliment made fourth elder Feng Bao felt very happy, and the smile on his face became even wider, and he said humbly, thank you, sir. Although he was praising him on the surface, this was not the case in his heart. Luo Ren clearly remembered what Lao Chen said. Wuangshang was a place where people ate people. The people at the bottom endured extreme oppression. Their stomachs were not full, but they still had to eat. Engage in heavy labor production. There are also many women who are treated as commodities. This kind of place can be called a hell on earth, but seeing is believing, and hearing is believing. What Lao Chen said was only what Lao Chen said. Only by seeing it with your own eyes can you know what kind of place Wuangshang is. The wheels rolled over the gravel on the ground, and they soon approached the gate of Wuangshang city. The pure gold off-road vehicle was very conspicuous. The soldiers on duty knew who the vehicle belonged to and who was on board, so they let it go without checking. It's just that they are a little strange. Why did the fourth elder suddenly come back just a few minutes after he left? Could it be that the matter was resolved in just 10 minutes? Doubts are doubts, but they don't ask too much about things related to the upper class. Ordinary people like them had better listen less, read less, and ask less, so that they can live longer. All the convoys entered the village and the city gate was closed. Luo Ren turned his head and looked out the window, where he saw it. The dilapidated houses were basically made of random pieces of wood and plastic. Such houses could be said to have air leakage everywhere, and some even had no doors. Some rooms were empty, while others were occupied. These people had dull eyes, were thin, and their faces were covered with malnourished white spots. They were either lying or sitting, but no one was standing. Luo Ren asked, these people are skinny and bones. They look very hungry. Why don't they look for food? These untouchables either have problems with their hands or feet, or have physical problems. In short, they can't do anything. If they are asked to work and find food, they are just a burden. The fourth elder Feng Bao answered in a very relaxed tone, and the word untouchable just came out of his mouth. He looked sideways at the people in the room, with no concealment of disgust on his face, and then said, if the deputy village master hadn't been in the village master's ear, in my opinion, these people who have no ability to work, should be driven out of the village, to avoid occupying positions here. Luo Ren felt that what Feng Bao said was harsh, but he did not show it. He asked again, then these people have no ability to work, will you give them food? Food? Feng Bao immediately shook his head and said, they are very lucky not to be driven out. They still want us to provide them with food. This is like the deputy village owner blowing a tornado in the village owner's ears. Impossible. Luo Ren took a deep look at the dumb people and then withdrew his gaze. He did not continue to ask any more questions. From Feng Bao's words, he could tell that the ruling class of Wuyangshuang did not pay attention to the people at the bottom, and the saying that people cannibalize people is correct. The car passed through civilian residential areas and came to the central area, which is a hill with many small buildings built on the hill. The most eye-catching one is the exquisite and gorgeous villa on the top of the hill. It seems that the construction of this villa has not been completed yet. You can see people carrying bricks and stones to continue the construction. Feng Bao took the initiative to introduce. The villa on the top of the hill is the mansion of the village owner. The owner and deputy owner of the village live there. Sir, you want to see the owner of the village? I will take you to the owner's mansion to meet the owner later. Luo Ren nodded and said, okay. When the car reached the entrance to the mountain, we saw a tall mountain gate with the word Marshall Hill written on it. There were several well-equipped and strong soldiers stationed underneath. When these soldiers saw the golden sov, they did not let it go directly like the soldiers guarding the city gate. Instead, they blocked the road, and one person stepped forward. In the car, Feng Bao took out a gold and silver plaque from his pocket. The edge of the gold and silver plaque was engraved with complex patterns, and the word elder was in the middle. The driver had been here more than once, and was very skilled in his business. When he saw the visitor, he immediately lowered all the windows, took the gold and silver ID tag handed over by Feng Bao, and then handed it to the soldier on duty for inspection. The soldier received the token, looked at it carefully for a while, and then handed it back. He cupped his fists and raised his hands to Feng Bao, bowed and said, I have met the fourth elder. Feng Bao nodded slightly and said yeah. Normally, he should be released at this time, but this time it was different. The soldier looked at Luo Ren and asked, may I ask the fourth elder, who is this person? This is my guest. After Toyo Bao said that, he stared at the soldier. His tone was deliberately serious, and asked, why can't I have friends? Of course, you can make friends with whomever you want. The soldier on duty smiled slightly, but did not give in, because Feng Bao was an elder. He continued, it's just that you know Wukiu's rules better than I do. Except for the owner and the deputy, except for the village owner, if anyone wants to take outsiders up the mountain, they must have the authorization of the village owner. Feng Bao frowned, and quickly glanced at Luo Ren. Seeing that Luo Ren's expression did not change, and there was no impatience in his eyes, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. But his heart urged him to come up with a perfect plan, as soon as possible. If he rushed into Wukiu regardless of the obstruction, he would inevitably anger the owner of the manor, and he would be in trouble. And if he dragged on like this, it would be difficult to deal with the person next to him. If he got angry. After thinking for a while, he couldn't come up with a perfect plan. He could only bite the bullet, and said to Luo Ren with an apologetic face, sir, why don't you wait here first? I will go up the mountain to find the owner of the manor. Looking at Feng Bao, Luo Ren was about to nod and agree. At this time, a car horn sounded behind him, as if urging them to hurry up. Luo Ren saw the car behind him in the rearview mirror, which was a yellow pickup truck. I say, Lao C, why are you blocking here? A man got off the yellow pickup truck. This man was about 1.7 meters tall, wearing a black leather jacket, a pair of sunglasses, and a big back hair, like a gangster boss. Feng Bao was familiar with the man's voice, and immediately explained to Luo Ren, it's the third elder Chen Jun. The third elder, a level 2 evolver. Luo Ren thought to himself. In just a few seconds, the third elder Chen Jun had walked to the front of their car, and saw Luo Ren in the car at first glance. He was stunned for a while, then his eyes passed Luo Ren, and saw Feng Bao next to him, and asked, Who is this? Feng Bao said, this is my guest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Commodity, Woman. Guest. Chen Jun looked at Luo Ren carefully. He was handsome and had delicate skin. This made him have a wrong idea. He showed a meaningful smile and said, "Fourth brother, I didn't expect that your boy likes to be beautiful. Besides, it's a good thing." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Feng Bao angrily scolded Chen Jun and then hurriedly apologized to Luo Ren. "Sir, Chen Jun likes to talk nonsense. You, sir, have a lot of them. Don't be angry. I will take him to make amends to you." "I'm sorry." Chen Jun was in the realm of a true warrior. He didn't dare to let Chen Jun apologize to Luo Ren. Although the fourth and fourth sons were friendly to each other on the surface, he knew that Chen Jun was like this with everyone, not because of a good relationship with him. Grown-ups. When Chen Jun heard Feng Bao's name for Luo Ren, he immediately became interested. He knew very well that Feng Bao was a person who only respected those who were stronger than him. Looking down, he saw Toyo Bao's right hand, which was a little distorted and red and swollen. He was obviously injured. Looking at Luo Ren again, he thought to himself, it must be Feng Bao who was injured by this kid. Toyo Bao was in the realm of a half-step warrior and could injure him and beat him into submission. The young man in front of him, who looked to be only in his 20s, should be in the realm of a warrior, which forced him to pay attention. He suddenly took off his sunglasses, with a kind expression on his face, and introduced himself. "My name is Chen Jun, the third elder of Wuang village. May I ask your surname?" This man had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and looked like a gentleman. His expression looked even more like a good guy at the moment, but Luo Ren didn't think so. As the saying goes, a person cannot be judged by his appearance. From Chen Jun's eyes, he felt a cold murderer saw a point that only comes after killing many people. After a long silence, he smiled calmly and said, "Luo Ren, Luo Ren, a good name, Chen Jun complimented me casually, and then asked, Brother Luo is not from Wuangxiang, right? Is he here to seek refuge, or is there something else? While passing by here, I heard that Wuang village is huge and its owner is extremely powerful. I came here to see it." Luo Ren said. Oh. Chen Jun was very surprised when he heard this. He came to Wuang village alone just to see it. Isn't he afraid of losing his life? However, he was only surprised for a moment, and he regained his composure. After all, it was not him who lost his life, and it had nothing to do with him. Naturally, he didn't bother to care about it, nor did he bother to dig into it. He put on his sunglasses and said with a smile, "I see. Since that's the case, the four old guys can take care of it. I have other things to do, so I'll leave first." He looked at Feng Bao again and said, "Fourth, if you don't want to go in, please move the car to the side and let me pass first." Feng Bao did not dare to offend Chen Jun, and seeing that Luo Ren's expression did not change, he probably had no objection, so he ordered the driver to pull over. After getting out of the way, the yellow pickup truck started behind him and passed Luo Ren to get into the vehicle. At this time, Luo Ren saw what was being pulled behind the pickup truck. There were several women locked in iron cages. These women were squatting and huddled in a corner with frightened expressions. Feng Bao on the side said, "These women are all good looking, but they are a little thinner, but it is not a big deal. It can be solved by feeding them for a few days, and maybe they can be sold for a big price." Luo Ren frowned slightly and asked, "Can these women still be bought and sold?" Feng Bao replied, "You don't know something. The transaction I'm talking about is not money, but more like barter. Like two of those women, if they are well raised, their quality can reach the third level, and they can be exchanged for money. Dozens of kilograms of food. How do you conduct business? Do you negotiate privately, or do you have a special place?" Luo Ren asked. "Private transactions are also possible, but that is too troublesome and a waste of time. Therefore, we usually use the barter building established by the village owner. We can put the information of the items for sale in the barter building. If someone likes it, he wants to buy it. the barter will notify the seller. They even created a special market platform. Luo Ren was disgusted by this. Now it seems that Luo Chen was right. Wujiang village really treats women as commodities, and instead of stopping the village owner, Li Yang, he established a barter building. It seems that he is really not a good bird. Point. Just as he was thinking about it, there was another roar of the engine behind him, but he saw the soldier suddenly looked solemn and ran quickly to the car behind him. Luo Ren saw through the rearview mirror that it was an extremely gorgeous car with dragons, phoenixes, and clouds painted on the body. The soldier's face was full of respect, nodding and bowing like a slave. Click. Suddenly there was the sound of opening and closing the door beside him. He turned his head and saw that Toyobeo was no longer in the car, but trotting towards the car behind him. His expression was even more respectful than that of the soldier. With Feng Bao looking like this, the person in the car must have a very high status. Could it be Li Yang, the owner of Wujiang village? Luo Ren couldn't help but guess who was in the car behind. At the same time, Feng Bao trotted back, leaned against the car window, and whispered, "Sir, our deputy village chief is seeing you, so please move." No wonder Feng Bao can be so complimentary. It turns out he is the deputy owner of Wujiang village. Luo Ren thought to himself, then smiled softly, sat upright without getting out of the car, and said, "I'm tired and don't want to move." Oops. Feng Bao was extremely anxious when he heard this, and hurriedly advised, "Sir, please think of me as begging you. If I make the deputy village owner unhappy, it will not be easy for you or me." Luo Ren glanced at him, but didn't speak or move. The meaning was very clear. I just didn't want to move. Feng Bao was so anxious that he stamped his feet. Finally, he took a deep breath, looked at Luo Ren deeply, and then walked quickly to the side of the car behind him. He said something to the people in the car. The driver's door of the car behind him was pushed open, and a man in black clothes and black pants came down from it. The man strode to the side of Luo Ren's car with a cold expression and said, "Deputy owner, please move aside for a chat." Luo Ren smiled at the man in black and said, "No, deputy owner, please move aside for a chat." The man in black repeated a sentence, but this time his tone was obviously much heavier and a little impatient. Luo Ren smiled again and said, "No." The man in black suddenly opened the car door and grabbed Luo Ren's chest with one hand. This move came suddenly and swiftly, and it can be seen that the force was very great. This man in black should be a quasi level 2 evolver like Feng Bao. HMPH. Luo Ren snorted coldly. Facing the attacking hand, he was the first to arrive and grabbed the black-clothed man's wrist, preventing him from moving forward half an inch. Then he squeezed it hard, and a crack sound was heard. The black-clothed man's face immediately turned red. He was tough, and the pain of the broken bones did not even make him cry out. Luo Ren then kicked the black-clothed man in the chest, and kicked him 5 or 6 meters away, covering him with mud. This kick was very restrained, otherwise the black-clothed man could have been kicked to death. Feng Bao was stunned when he saw the black-clothed man flying backwards, and then fear surged in his heart. He knelt down with a plop, and kept saying in his mouth, "This matter has nothing to do with me." It was all Luo Ren's behavior. "Deputy Manor Master, please spare my life." The car door opened, and Feng Bao heard the sound, and his head knocked harder and harder, and the words he said to shirk responsibility in his mouth became faster. Luo Ren saw through the rearview mirror that the person who got out of the car behind him was a woman, and a beautiful woman with a delicate and gorgeous appearance. The woman walked towards him with her slender and straight legs. When she reached the front of the car, her eyes fell on him, and then climbed up to his face. She was a little surprised to see his handsome appearance, but only for a moment. The woman was not angry because he injured her men. Instead, she said politely, "I'm the deputy owner of Wujiang Manor, Kinj. Just now I ordered my men to invite you to have a talk. I never thought that he would be so rude. It is right for him to be taught a lesson, and I, the person involved, should also come to apologize." As she said that, she bowed slightly and said, "I'm sorry." Chapter 285 Kinj, Part 1. The deputy owner of Wujiang village. Kinj's voice is very sweet, as light as a nightingale and as nimble as a lark. Her proactive apology made Luo Ren very surprised. he suddenly remembered that Feng Bao said on the way that those civilians who were unable to work were not kicked out because she blew wind in Li Yang's ear. From this point of view, this person seemed to be related to Li Yang. Something is out of place here. Since the other party had such a good attitude, he had no reason not to accept the apology. He got out of the car, waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter." Kinch smiled slightly and praised, "Brother Luo is so generous." Then she added, "I'm here to invite you personally this time. I wonder if Luo Ren would be kind enough to talk to me." The words have been said, and things have been done, and Kinch is the deputy owner of the village. It will definitely be easier to enter Wukyu through it and meet Li Yang. Luo Ren nodded and said, "Okay." Kinch felt happy and said, "Please." The two came to the car behind them. This car was really gorgeous, but it was very ordinary. Except for the window glass, the whole body was painted with patterns, including dragons and phoenixes flying in the sea of clouds. Luo Ren couldn't help but said, "Your car is really awesome." Kinch smiled slightly, opened the car door, and made a gesture of invitation. After Luo Ren got in the car, Kinch got in from the other side. At this time, the man in black clothes and black trousers returned to the driver's seat and received a painful kick from Luo Ren. His face turned yellow and his expression was panic-stricken, as if he was holding his breath and felt uncomfortable. There is also a big shoe print on his chest. Through the rear view mirror in the car, Kinch saw the expression of the man in black and immediately slapped him on the back. The man in black immediately let out a long breath and his expression quickly returned to normal. Luo Ren couldn't help but take a peek. This Kinch had something special, and she could control the strength at hand really well. "Let's go, Laoli." Kinch said something, and the man in black immediately started the vehicle and passed the golden sub of 4th Elder Feng Bao and passed through Wukyu Mountain Gate. This time none of the soldiers blocked him, because in Wukyu, no, in the entire Wuang village, the deputy village owners have privileges, but it is nothing to bring a stranger to Wukyu. Passing through the mountain gate and stepping onto Wukyu winding mountain road, the road is a concrete road. In this environment, asphalt is not available, and concrete paving is already a luxury. Tea trees and fruit trees are planted on both sides of the road. They have just passed their flowering period and the fruit trees have already produced small green fruits. I think this hill was originally planted with tea trees and fruit trees, otherwise the temporary planting would not have grown so big so quickly. And among these fruit trees and tea trees, small buildings rose from the ground, almost all with 2 floors, and a few with 3 floors. In the car, Kinch stared at Luo Ren for a while, then suddenly spoke and asked, "Brother Luo defeated Laoli with 2 moves. The 4th elder also said that you crushed his hand. Is Brother Luo in the realm of a warrior?" Luo Ren nodded and said, "That's right. Why do you think it's okay?" Kinch was not satisfied with this ambiguous answer and immediately asked, hoping to get an accurate answer. "This woman." Luo Ren glanced at Kinch, thought, and then said, "Where I am, there is no such thing as the warrior realm. People like us are called evolvers. As far as I know, the warrior realm you are talking about should be a level 2 evolver." "I understand. It seems that Brother Luo is a level 2 evolver." Kinch thought about it on her own, suddenly realized, and immediately determined, that Luo Ren was a level 2 evolver, which was the warrior realm she mentioned. However, she didn't know which of the 3 smaller realms Luo Ren was, namely the junior, middle and last realms. "Don't worry about this, you'll know after you give it a try." "Is this woman dragging me into the car just to ask me this?" Seeing that Kinch was silent after asking, Luo Ren was very confused. If he just asked this, why would he get in the car? Wouldn't it be more convenient to ask directly? At this moment, he suddenly felt the car speeding up. When he looked up, he saw that he was catching up to a yellow pickup truck dragging several women. The 3rd elder, Chen Jun. Sitting down, the car blocked the yellow pickup truck and forced it to stop. Kinch directly opened the door and got out of the car, walking towards the yellow pickup truck with long legs. Chen Jun, who was on the pickup truck, also got out of the truck immediately and nodded and bowed to Kinch, very respectfully, completely different from his attitude when facing Feng Bao. Other people in Wuang village so bullying and afraid of the strong. Luo Ren couldn't help complaining in his heart. In just 2 or 3 minutes, Kinj didn't know what she said to Chen Jun, so she returned to the car and said to the driver, Laoli, let's go. The vehicle continued to move, and Luo Ren looked away. After a while, he glanced at the rear view mirror and saw the yellow pickup truck following behind. He was a little confused, so he asked directly, Vice Owner King, what's going on with the car behind you? Well, King, he said, I bought his things and asked him to deliver them to my door. Delivery to your door. Luo Ren frowned slightly, then relaxed it quickly, secretly guessing, did he buy those women? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Kinj strangely, thinking, maybe this woman likes women. Kinj noticed Luo Ren's eyes and could roughly guess what Luo Ren was thinking, but she did not explain point as it approached the top of the mountain. The vehicle slowed down, suddenly turned left, entered a fork in the road, and drove for some distance before stopping in front of a 3-story building. Luo Ren was confused again. Didn't Feng Bao say that the owner and deputy owner of the village lived in the villa on the top of the mountain? Why did they stop here? Kinj suddenly said, we are here. Brother Luo, please come into the house with me to talk. She got in the car and went into the house. Does this woman have any idea about me? As the saying goes, when the enemy comes, the general will stop it. When the water comes, the earth will cover it. Luo Ren nodded and then got off the car with Kinj. Instead of going into the house immediately, Kinj walked to the back car and asked the third elder Chen Jun to open the iron cage and then took the women to the house together. When they reached the door, Chen Jun suddenly shouted, the deputy owner, you haven't paid yet. Kinj paused for a while without looking back and ordered. Old Lee took him to get 100 kilograms of food and a bottle of wine. Yes. The driver Laoli responded and then walked to the door of the yellow pickup truck, said to Chen Jun, let's go. Then he got in the pickup truck. Chen Jun smiled and clasped his fists to Kinj and said, thank you, deputy owner. Kinj ignored him and went straight into the house. In addition to the trembling women, Luo Ren also followed into the house. As soon as he entered the house, a young girl came to greet him. The girl was only 15 or 16 years old. She was very respectful to Kinj and called sweetly, Sister Kinj, you are back. He looked past Kinj and saw several women behind her. Seeing their miserable appearance, he was filled with resentment and cursed, those beasts. Then he saw Luo Ren again, and his eyebrows were slightly frowned. In addition to resentment, there was more disgust in his eyes. She seemed to hate men. Kinj's red lips moved slightly, and then she said, Ling Ling, take them to wash and change into clean clothes. Okay. The girl said, you guys follow me. Before leaving, she stared at Luo Ren deeply with disgust. Chapter 286 Kinj, Part 2. Kinj saw the attitude of the girl Ling Ling towards Luo Ren, and immediately expressed her apology and said, Ling Ling is young and ignorant. Brother Luo, don't mind. Luo Ren felt that he was innocent, but he would not argue with a little girl. He smiled and said, it doesn't matter. Kinj didn't see any hatred or anger in Luo Ren's eyes. It was obvious that she really didn't care about this matter. This surprised her. In the current environment, women's status was extremely low. Of course, she was considered an example due to the natural advantages in physical fitness and the fact that they have been suppressed for too long in peacetime. Most men now always show a strong personality when facing women. Whenever a woman's behavior makes him unhappy, he will explode. 10 times more angry. Judging from Luo Ren's reaction, it was not the majority of people. This made her feel surprised, and at the same time she couldn't help but look at Luo Ren. She smiled and said, Brother Luo, please take a seat. The two sat down facing each other and were silent for a while. Kinj said, Brother Luo, do you know why I invited Brother Luo to come here to talk? I don't know where to go. Luo Ren shook his head and said, I don't know. Kinj stood up and poured a glass of water for Luo Ren, then sat down again and said, to be honest, I have taken a liking to you, Brother Luo. Hearing this, Luo Ren almost spit out the water he drank, thinking, did I guess it right? She really has thoughts about me. From Luo Ren's reaction, Kinj knew that Luo Ren was wrong, and quickly explained, Brother Luo misunderstood. To be precise, I'm interested in Brother Luo's combat prowess, and that's it. Luo Ren felt happy, but at the same time he felt a little inexplicable. Maybe it was the true nature of a man. He immediately asked, "What do Vice Village Master King say?" Kinj said, "To be honest, I think there is a huge crisis in Wuang village at the moment. If we don't change, it will be destroyed sooner or later." Luo Ren said, "I'm all ears." Kinj sighed and said, "Brother Luo is not from Wuang village, so he doesn't know. The overall structure of Wuang village is a pyramid. There is only one person on the top level of the pyramid, the village owner Li Yang. The second level is me and the elders. The third level is the disciples of those elders. The fourth level is soldiers and guards. And the bottom level is ordinary people who account for the largest population." Kinj suddenly asked, "Brother Luo, do you think that the pyramid model is very reasonable? Is this the same pyramid model in peacetime in the past?" Luo Ren nodded and said, "That's right." Kinj continued, "But this is just common sense. If such a pyramid model is really like this, it would be stable, but the pyramid model in Wuang's is rapidly deforming, or it has already deformed. The first 3 levels enjoy extremely rich resources, and where do these resources come from? The 4th level has no way to enjoy rich resources, but their desire makes them, even if they cannot enjoy rich resources, at least have enough resources. They can't fight the first 3 levels, so they can only squeeze the 5th level. As a result, the 5th level is the main producer of resources, but the remaining resources are not enough for food and clothing, or even for life. Well, by this time, according to history, there will definitely be large-scale riots and uprisings on the 5th level." With pity in her eyes, Kinj sighed again and said, "However, times are different. Now these people are in such a closed environment, with no weapons in their hands, and long-term hunger has caused their physical condition to decline seriously. If they rise up to resist, they will end up dead. But not resisting would lead to death. From the looks of it, they only had one way, and that was death. And if they die, the 4th floor will become the lowest floor, and so on. If Wuang's is not destroyed by the zombies and monsters outside, I'm afraid it will be destroyed by our own hands." Luo Ren looked at this woman in shock. She could actually say such words. He couldn't help but be impressed. He calmed down and asked, "Then do you have any solution?" Kinj replied firmly, "Yes." Then she explained, "To solve this problem, the people at the top need to wake up, then modify the system. Take macro control, allocate resources reasonably, and make everything sustainable. Only in this way can it be stable and long-lasting." Luo Ren nodded and agreed with Kinj's statement. He rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment before asking, "In this case, wouldn't it be enough if you directly persuade Li Yang, the owner of Wuang village, to modify the existing system?" Kinj said, "Theoretically, this is the best choice." Then she shook her head with a wry smile and said, "But, in fact, this is the worst choice. The owner of the village, Li Yang, has completely fallen. In his eyes, he has separated from human beings. He is a god who is above and overlooks all living beings. The people at the bottom are just ants who can live or die. How to persuade such a person? How to persuade him?" With such words, Luo Ren basically understood what kind of person Li Yang, the owner of Wuang village, was, and he had already made a decision in his heart about Li Yang's life or death. He smiled and said, "Then what method do you have to disrupt the current situation and make Wuang village sustainable?" Kinj stared closely into Luo Ren's eyes, as if she wanted to see into his heart. Luo Ren did not dodge, and the two looked at each other like this, clear and gentle. Her eyes were different from those of Li Yang, the 4th elder, and the 3rd elder. She took a deep breath and said, "To disintegrate the current situation, there is no other way but to solve it violently." She suddenly left her chair, knelt on one knee in front of Luo Ren, and said in a very sincere tone, "Brother Luo, I beg you to lend me a hand. Resolve it with violence." Luo Ren repeated the 4 words, and a smile rose at the corner of his mouth, saying secretly, "I like it." But he still had some calculations in his mind, and did not agree immediately. He helped Kinj up and said, "I heard that Li Yang is already a half-step martial artist, equivalent to a quasi-level 3 evolver. Can you be his opponent? Not to mention those elders. Do you think you can succeed?" Kinj's face dimmed when she heard this. Yes, a half-step martial artist is not something she, a late-stage martial artist, can deal with. but she soon regained her fighting spirit and said, "So what if I'm a half-step martial artist? For these hundreds of thousands of people, I'll give it a try, even though I know I can't win." After a long silence, seeing that Luo Ren didn't respond, her eyes suddenly became charming, and she moved closer, saying in a soft voice, "Brother Luo, as long as you can help me, I'm willing to marry you after the matter is done." Her hand touched Luo Ren's chest, and her charming eyes kept sending her charming glances. Beauty trap. This woman was born with a charming bone, and her words and breaths were so charming that people could imagine it. If it was an ordinary person with ordinary concentration, he would probably fall in less than 10 seconds. When Kinj's palm touched his chest, Luo Ren was shocked, as if he was electrocuted. He quickly stepped back, pulled away, and waved his hand, saying, "Deputy Mana Master King, you don't have to do this." Chapter 287. The same purpose. Luo Ren took a few steps back to distance himself from Kinj, waved his hand and said, "Vice Manager King, you don't have to be like this." Kinj pretended not to hear what Luo Ren said, and stepped forward, holding Luo Ren's shoulders with both hands. Her anger was like orchid, her tenderness was like honey, and she said, "Brother Luo Ren, just help me." "Oh, I'm telling you, Deputy Villa Master King, why are you doing this? After struggling in this world for so long, everyone is a sensible person, so don't use the beauty trap." Luo Ren retreated again, distanced himself, and pointed out Kinj with one word. Kinj smiled even more charmingly and said, "Brother Luo is really powerful, he can see through my plan." But just as she said that, she pulled down half of her clothes, revealing her shoulders as white as mutton fat white jade, and threw them to Luo Ren, gave a wink and said, "Brother Luo, don't you want to?" Luo Ren frowned. This woman really had a lot of skills. He smiled lightly, and did not step back this time. Instead, he took a few steps forward, and put his mouth close to Kinj's ear. Just when Kinj thought she had succeeded, she heard Luo Ren say, "Deputy Villa Master King, if you are really willing, it won't be after the matter is completed." After saying that, Luo Ren distanced himself again, his expression half smiling point. When Kinj heard this, all the charming smiles on her face disappeared, and the water in her eyes disappeared, replaced by a bone-chilling coldness, with murderous intent emerging from it. Kick, kick, kick. At the same time, footsteps came downstairs. The girl Lingling came down from upstairs, rushed to the door, locked the door, and blocked the door. In addition to deep disgust, there was also horror in her eyes when she looked at Luo Ren. Human intent to kill. Except for the girl Lingling, there were rustling sounds from all directions in the whole house. Immediately afterwards, many women with guns appeared from all over the house and entered the living room. The murderous intent in these women's eyes was not concealed at all, and the black holes of guns aiming directly at Luo Ren. With just one order from Kinj, a dense rain of bullets will come. Facing such a horrifying scene, Luo Ren's expression did not change at all, and his eyes did not fluctuate at all. Kinj was surprised and asked, "Aren't you afraid, Luo?" Ren said calmly, "Not afraid. Aren't you afraid?" Kinj was surprised, and then sneered, "Are you really not afraid, or are you just pretending to be calm?" Luo Ren's expression remained calm and he said, "I'm really not afraid. There are 34 people here with 34 guns, and they are all in the realm of warriors, which is what you call level 1 evolvers. There is also Ling, who is an early stage warrior, and I, a late stage warrior." She paused and said, "Unless you are a half-step martial artist or above, you won't be able to get out of here today." Luo Ren smiled helplessly. Although he didn't agree, he didn't refuse either. He just said a few more words and this woman made such a fuss. He sighed and asked, "Aren't you afraid that making too much noise will arouse other people's suspicions?" Kinj smiled coldly and said, "Doubtful? As long as you die, it's not me who has the final say." "That's true." Luo Ren nodded and glanced at the dozens of gunmen. Seeing the disgusted look in the girl Lingling's eyes, he suddenly smiled and said, "Sister, why do you always look at me like that? I haven't messed with you." Lingling snorted and said coldly, "No man is good. This is too absolute." Luo Ren looked back at Kinj and asked, "Did you teach me this?" Kinj said coldly, "Stop talking nonsense. Life and death are between your own thoughts. As long as you are willing to help me, you can get out of here. Otherwise, you know so much, I will not let you live. If the beauty trap fails, it's just coercion and inducement, but the approach is correct. If the positions are exchanged, and Luo Ren becomes Kinj, he will also do something like destroying him. If he doesn't join point however, there was a loophole, and he couldn't help but ask, if you say this, aren't you afraid that I will pretend to join, and after I get my freedom, I will tip off Li Yang? Kinj said confidently, of course you don't just need to agree verbally, but you also need to sign your name and press your fingerprints. Based on my understanding of Li Yang, I would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Once this document gets into his hands, even if you are pretending, he may not kill you, but he will definitely destroy you. Luo Ren suddenly understood, nodded and said, I understand. After all, it seems that I have no choice. He lowered his eyes, as if thinking, and suddenly raised his eyes to look directly at Kinj, grinned, and said, then I can only. The atmosphere in the room became extremely solemn at this moment. Kinjiju touched her lower back and quietly took out a dagger, always ready to take action. Luo Ren smiled and said, don't be so nervous. You've said so I can only sign and press my fingerprints. Kinj was stunned for a moment, then she retracted her dagger, the coldness in her eyes dissipated. She waved her hand and said, you will go down. Then he ordered, Ling Ling, go get the roster. The smile returned to Kinj's face. She made a gesture of invitation and said, Brother Luo, please sit down. Luo Ren sat down and stared at the woman in front of him. She was moody and righteous, and she was suitable to be a ruler. In addition to these two, there is another one. If she can also do it, it would be perfect. After a while, the girl Ling Ling came over with a roster, a pen and red clay, and placed them on the table in front of Luo Ren. Kinj raised her hand and said, please. Luo Ren glanced at the girl Ling Ling, his eyes flickered, and then he looked back and saw the roster on the table point. The first name on the roster was Kinj, followed by Ling Ling. This person should be the girl. She thought her name was Ling Ling, but she didn't expect it to be Ling Ling. There were dozens of people including Chen Wu and Xiangguang. Luo Ren teased, it seems that Deputy City Lord King had planned this long ago. Kinj smiled non-committally and said, please. Luo Ren picked up the pen and signed his name behind the last name without hesitation. Then he stained his thumb with red mud and pressed his handprint point at the same time. Ling Ling was recording the video. Luo Ren said, okay. Kinj smiled even more, and after ordering Ling Ling to hide the list, she said to Luo Ren, sorry, Brother Luo, I have no choice. Luo Ren laughed and said, it's okay. Then he asked, I just don't know when we will start. Kinj frowned slightly and said, Li Yang has advanced to a half-step martial artist, and his strength has greatly increased. It is difficult to defeat him, or even kill him. Including you who just joined, there are only 4 people in the martial arts realm here, and I'm the only one in the late martial arts realm. No, I don't know what your specific realm is, Brother Luo. Luo Ren smiled and said, how can I know that? It's very simple. As soon as the voice fell, Kinj's eyes suddenly condensed, and then changed her palm into a claw, and quickly grabbed Luo Ren's throat point. Luo Ren slightly turned sideways and easily dodged, then raised his fist to counterattack and hit Kinj in the face. Kinj changed her claws into palms, to meet Luo Ren's fist. Bang! The violent airwave spread with the two as the center. Kinj retreated several steps, but Luo Ren did not move at all. Kinj was shocked. When their fists collided, she felt a huge force coming out of Luo Ren's fist, which made her arm numb. You are not a warrior. Kinj was so shocked that her voice was trembling. I never said I was a warrior. Luo Ren said. At this time, Ling Ling, who heard the noise, came down from upstairs in a hurry. Seeing the messy living room, she rushed to Kinj and looked at Luo Ren vigilantly. Kinj waved her hand and said, it's okay here, you will go down. The dozens of people disappeared immediately after hearing this, and only the girl Ling Ling was still staring at Luo Ren. Kinj's eyes were full of confusion. She stared at Luo Ren and asked, with your strength, we couldn't stop you just now, why did you agree? Luo Ren smiled indifferently and said indifferently, because my purpose of coming here is the same as yours. Chapter 288 Hate, don't hate. Because I'm here for the same purpose as you. Read such a seemingly random sentence fell like thunder in Kinji's ears. At the same time, she was also very confused and couldn't help but ask, since we have the same purpose, why didn't you just say it directly instead of doing so much trouble? Luo Ren turned his head to look at the overturned single sofa, slowly straightened it up, then sat down, looked directly at Kinj, smiled, and said, because before I eliminate Li Yang, I still need to find the successor to Wuang village. The person in the position of owner. And this person's character and thoughts must not be the second Li Yang, otherwise even if Li Yang is killed, Wuang village will just change its ruler. Therefore, I cannot reveal the true purpose until then. Kinji's heart moved. She vaguely guessed something, and immediately asked, now, why do you want to reveal your purpose to me? There was a hint of excitement in her tone, but when she thought about it, she was shocked again. Why are you surprised? Because Luo Ren's words have two meanings. The first is that he has found the owner of Wuang village in his heart, and this person is most likely to be her. The second is, since I can't hide it anymore, just tell her everything, and then, let her know everything. Based on the fight just now, she speculated that Luo Ren was at least half a martial artist. With such strength, it was easy to kill dozens of people in the room, and it was also easy to escape from Wuang village after killing them. With this thought in her mind, she was both nervous and excited, staring at Luo Ren, waiting for his answer. As for why I have to reveal my purpose to you, I think you already have the answer in your mind. After a pause, Luo Ren suddenly stood up, took a few steps closer, and stared at Kinj. This move made Kinj even more nervous, and she couldn't help but take a few steps back. Luo Ren smiled softly and said, your character, conduct, and thoughts are very suitable for becoming the new owner of Wuang village. Gilu. Kinj swallowed, and the tension in her heart disappeared instantly, leaving only endless excitement. She secretly accumulated strength in order to fight against Li Yang, but Li Yang was half a martial artist and too powerful. Even if they swarmed up, they might not be able to kill Li Yang, so she didn't take action for a long time. And if this continues, Li Yang will become stronger and stronger, and their chances will become slimmer and slimmer. I'm afraid that when Wuang village collapses, they will not be able to find a chance to kill Li Yang. By then, all secret plots will be in vain. However, it is different now. The appearance of Luo Ren is simply a timely help. With him, killing Li Yang is no longer out of reach. Why are you doing this? Kinj asked. She was excited and confused in her heart. The purpose of Luo Ren's killing of Li Yang was not to occupy Wuang village and become the new ruler himself, but to support her to ascend to the throne. Doing so would not gain anything. What good point in the current environment? Luo Ren helping out for no reason is a bit scary. If he wanted some benefits, Kinj would feel more at ease. Luo Ren said, nothing else, because I need Wuang village, but I can't stay to manage Wuang village. What? Kinj's face was full of confusion, and she obviously didn't understand the meaning of Luo Ren's words. Luo Ren smiled softly and said, don't worry, you will naturally know after you succeed to Wuang village. What you need to know now is that I will help you and will never harm you. Although I need Wuang village, after you become the owner of Wuang village, I will not interfere with your implementation of policies at will, nor will second will force you to provide me with resources. Therefore, what you have to do is to develop Wuang's Huang well. If the development is not good, I said that I will not interfere at will, but I did not say that I will not interfere with your implementation of policies. When your line is wrong and your thinking is wrong, I will be corrected. And if you don't accept correction, then, ugly words ahead, I can make you sit in the position of the owner, and I can also make you step down from this position. In such a passage, sincerity, domineering, and threats coexisted. After hearing this, Kinj concluded that Luo Ren was definitely not just a lone wolf with strong individual strength. This made her a little curious about where Luo Ren came from and what his true identity was. She even wondered whether Luo Ren was from a special national organization or a special operations force of the army. After pondering for a long time, she nodded solemnly and responded, as long as you help me destroy Li Yang and let me succeed as the owner of the village, I guarantee that Wuang village will definitely be completely new in less than 3 months. Seeing her firm expression and confident words, Luo Ren smiled slightly and said, "Okay, I believe you." At this moment, a sincere smile appeared on Kinji's face. She glanced at the messy living room and said, "It's too messy here. How about us move to the second floor?" Luo Ren nodded and said, "Okay." Kinji said, "Please." The matter was settled, and the atmosphere in the room instantly relaxed. Luo Ren and Kinji walked side by side up the stairs towards the second floor. On the way, Luo Ren thought of the relationship between Kinji and Li Yang, and became curious in his heart. As he walked, he said, "I have something unclear, and I need an answer from Deputy Master King." Kinji said, "Brother Luo, please ask." Luo Ren was not polite and asked directly, "When I came here, I heard Feng Bao say that you have a close relationship with Li Yang." Hearing this, Kinji stopped, turned her head and looked over, remained silent for a few seconds, and said, "Yes, Li Yang and I do have a special relationship. It was said in the village that before the disaster, Li Yang had pursued I relentlessly, but I refused. But soon after the disaster, I accepted him because he rushed into the zombies to save me regardless of his life and death, which moved me." She shook her head and smiled bitterly. "The previous is true, but the reason why I accepted him is not like this. He has never rushed into the zombies to save me regardless of his life and death. If he had, I'm afraid that we would have become zombies." Luo Ren nodded. He was right. The zombies in the early days of the apocalypse were all fresh humans who had just transformed. They were strong and healthy, and they were completely different from the ordinary zombies with skin and bones now. At that time, if you were surrounded by zombies, unless you had a strong and well-equipped army, you would have no choice but to die. Kinji's eyes flashed with hatred, and then said, "The hero saves the beauty and takes the beauty home. This is all fake. The reason why I agreed to him was that a few days after the disaster, he put away his gentleman's face and forced me to have sex. Point after that, I also recognize the reality. It is better to have a man to rely on than to be bullied by many men. Point to be honest, he was pretty good to me after that. He gave me food so that I would not be hungry and gave me spirit stones to help me evolve. After a long time, I didn't hate him that much anymore for what happened that day." Luo Ren asked curiously, "Since you don't hate him anymore, why do you want to kill him?" Kinji took a deep breath and said resolutely, "Because he is no longer himself now. He thinks he is a god, and I think he is a demon. More than 100,000 people in Chiang City are just ants in his eyes. He can abandon them at any time, or even step on them to death. This runs counter to my philosophy. I think it's okay to call yourself a god, but you have to be a god with humanity, not an inhuman person. Point therefore, for Wuoyang Manor, for more than 100,000 lives in the manor, and of course, for my own life, he must die." Chapter 289 Ants, Part 1. The word death was dropped, obviously containing murderous intent. I don't know if Kinji really doesn't hold any grudge against Li Yang anymore, or if she is just telling the truth. Luo Ren had no comment on this matter, and didn't know how to comment. He just nodded and said, "He will die, and more than 100,000 people in Wuoyang's will live." Looking directly into Kinji's eyes, he said in a serious tone, "You will also live." The two went up to the second floor. There was also a living room on the second floor. They sat down in the living room. The girl Ling Ling brought tea. Now when she looked at Luo Ren, the disgust in her eyes was much less, but it was still there. I really don't know why she let it go. She hates men so much. Picking up the teacup on the table, he took a sip of the tea in the cup. It was bitter in the mouth, and then sweet afterwards. Although Luo Ren didn't know how to taste tea, he knew it was good tea. Looking at Kinji, he saw that she was looking directly at him, and did not dodge the gaze that met his. He smiled. Luo Ren took out a blue-covered book from his pocket. He got it from the fifth elder Karo Lun. The Wuangong arrived. Kinji was a little surprised when she saw Wuangong. She didn't know why Luo Ren had Wuangong. It belonged to Wuoyang village exclusively, and could only be possessed by elders for the past half month. Luo Ren has been wondering whether it is possible to practice in this world, and what this Wuangong is. Throwing Wu Yanggong on the table casually, he asked, "Vice Master King, stop." As soon as he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Kinji. Kinj said, "Brother Luo, you are shouting at the deputy village owner king. It's not tiring. I'm very tired from listening to it. My surname is Liu and my name is Kinj. You can just call me by my full name or Kinj. The surname is Liu." Luo Ren asked in surprise. Kinj asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Luo Ren waved his hand and said, "It's okay. I just remembered that a friend of mine also had the surname Liu." After pondering for a moment, he continued, "Okay, I'll call you Kinj. You don't need to call me Brother Luo. Brother Luo. Just me, Luo Ren." Kinj nodded slightly. Luo Ren's eyes moved down to the Wuangong on the table and asked, "Do you know this Wuangong?" Kinj picked up Wuangong on the table, flipped through a few pages and closed it, saying, "Of course I know that Wuangong belongs exclusively to our Wuang village, and it is only circulated among the top brass inside. I don't know Luo Ren." After thinking about how to call him, she asked in surprise, "I wonder where my brother comes from." "I got this from your Wuang Huang 5th Elder Karo Lun." Luo Ren didn't hide it, because there was no need. Since they both talked about killing Li Yang, how could Kinj care whether he killed a little 5th elder? Although she didn't care, Kinj was still surprised and said in surprise, "It turns out that the 5th elder and his disciples were killed by you." Luo Ren said, "I killed him." Kinj suddenly laughed, and as expected, she didn't care about Luo Ren killing Karo Lun, and even gloated a little, saying, "That guy Karo Lun has done so many evil things, he should have died long ago." Luo Ren smiled and said, "Karo Lun is dead, and we won't talk about him. I want to know if this Wuangong can really be practiced." Kinj covered her mouth and chuckled, threw Wu Yanggong on the table casually, shook her head, and said, "There is no cultivation at all. This Wu Yanggong was made up by Li Yang himself to deceive others." Luo Ren frowned and said, "A random compilation? But when I fought against Karo Lun, I could clearly feel that he was faster and more powerful than an ordinary quasi level 2 evolver. This has nothing to do with Wuangkung. It is actually about improving speed and strength through exercise. However, there is a limit. If you want to be stronger, you still need the spiritual stones in the zombies' brains." Kinj directly told the truth, but this truth made Luo Ren a little confused. Speed and strength could be improved through exercise. He had never heard of the system. Immediately, he asked silently in his mind, "System, is what she said true? Is it true that speed and strength can be improved to a certain extent through exercise?" She is right. Evolved people are similar to ordinary people. Ordinary people can improve their strength, speed, and endurance through various exercises, exceeding the average level of humans. The same is true for evolvers. The physical fitness of each level of evolvers is the average of that level. Through corresponding exercises, the physical fitness can be improved to a certain extent and exceeded the average level of this level. However, there is an upper limit to improvement. That is, it will never exceed the evolutionary level. For example, through corresponding training, a level 1 evolver's strength and speed will increase, exceeding the average level of this level, and even reaching the highest level of this level. But the strength and speed are still not as good as the lowest level of quasi level 2 evolver. After listening to the system's explanation, Luo Ren suddenly realized that this was actually the case. Now he was relieved and gave up. It seemed that there really was no cultivation in this world. Seeing Luo Ren's disappointed look, Kinj couldn't help but ask, "Brother, what's wrong with you?" "It's okay." Luo Ren waved his hand and continued, "Let's get down to business." After a pause, and waiting for Kinj to enter the state, he said, "Since you want to change Wuang village, you must not only kill one Li Yang to solve it, but there are also some people who must be killed." Kinj nodded and said, "You are right. If you want Wuang village to change its appearance, not only Li Yang will be killed, but a group of people will also die." She looked at the girl Lingling and said, "Lingling, go get the list." Then she looked at Luo Ren, smiled coldly, and said, "I have already recorded these damn people. As long as Li Yang dies, all of them will be gone. Can't escape." Lingling quickly took out the list, and when she looked closely, she saw 21 names written in red pen. Among them, Li Yang, Feng Bao, and Chen Jun were clearly on the list, as well as an acquaintance, Karo Lun. but this name had been changed. Mark it with a red cross. Xiang Guang. Luo Ren frowned slightly and said in surprise, I seem to have seen this bear light somewhere. Kinch smiled and said, isn't it the one on the joining list just now? Yes. Luo Ren recalled seeing Xiang Guang's name when he had just signed up for the team, and it was ranked among the top ones. Since they were from the same camp, it was really strange why his name was on the must-kill list. My dear friend, are you curious as to why Xiang Guang appears on this list again? Kinch's eyes flashed with a cold light and said, this Xiang Guang's identity is the first elder, a middle-term warrior, and he has done more than Feng Bao and Chen Jun were even worse, so he deserved to die. Why does he appear on the list just now? It's because he is a big help in the middle stage of the warrior, and I need to use him. Understood. Luo Ren felt at this time that this woman was really suitable to be a ruler. At the same time, he was curious about how Kinch allowed such a person to join her. He didn't ask, but Kinch could tell and took the initiative to say, Xiang Guang agreed to help me because. Chapter 290 Ants, Part 2. Kinch said as she flirted with Luo Ren. Luo Ren understood immediately that she had used the same method as him, but he was still a little curious and asked immediately, I also want to know, did you tell him that you would marry me after you succeed, or did you marry me right on the spot? Kinch was stunned and suddenly felt that Luo Ren was so frivolous, snorted, and said, I'm not such a casual woman. Sure. Enough. All men are the same. Lingling next to her suddenly scolded, and now there was more disgust in her eyes. Luo Ren looked at Lingling and said, I say, little sister, there are many men in this world, with all kinds of faces and ever-changing personalities. How can they all be the same? The young girl Lingling turned her head away, too lazy to look at Luo Ren again. Luo Ren shrugged helplessly, not intending to care, but Kinch was afraid that Lingling would anger Luo Ren. This was her benefactor, and this benefactor had not helped she succeeded, so she couldn't offend him now. She immediately apologized. The child is ignorant. Please don't be angry. Then she deliberately raised her tone and scolded, get down. Lingling was very unconvinced by the scolding, but not to Kinch, but to Luo Ren. She glared at Luo Ren fiercely and left the place quickly. After Lingling left, Kinch smiled apologetically and said, I didn't discipline him well enough. I apologize to you. She stood up, bowed 90 degrees to Luo Ren, and said, I'm sorry. Luo Ren smiled and waved his hand, saying, that's too serious. Let's talk business. After a pause, he continued, since you have made all the preparations, what we need to do now is to determine when to start. Kinch sat back on the sofa and said, I have plans for this. 3 days later is Li Yang's birthday. He designated this day as Wu'ang Festival. A grand gathering will be held at that time. All the senior figures of Wu'ang village will be present, and the people on this list will be among them. We can take action at this time and kill Li Yang in one fell swoop, and at the same time, catch all the people on the list in one fell swoop, which can save a lot of trouble. 3 days later, Luo Ren nodded. He could still afford 3 days, but it would be hard for Lin Yao and Hao Yuan, who would have to wait in the service area for 3 days. It seems that I have to go back to the service area and tell Lin Yao the reason, to save her from worrying. After Luo Ren agreed, he chatted with Kinch for a few words, then left on the pretext of returning to the service area to inform Lin Yao. Luo Ren was very fast and disappeared in front of Kinch in the blink of an eye. Seeing such a speed, it was enough to show that Luo Ren was quite capable. Kinch couldn't help but smile. She walked out of the small building and stared at the direction where she thought Luo Ren had left. Then she got on the Dragon and Phoenix car, and the wheels rolled, pressing the road towards the cement towards the top of the mountain. Soon, the car stopped in front of the villa on the top of the mountain. After Kinch got off the car, she looked at the villa with a flash in her eyes. She took a deep breath and walked straight into the villa. After entering the villa, she went straight to the second floor. The second floor was very empty, with no partitions or furniture. There was only one person, sitting cross-legged in the middle. This person had short brown hair and a naked upper body, revealing explosive muscles. He heard the movement and slowly opened his eyes. After seeing Kinch, he slowly closed them again. He was the owner of Wu'ang Manor, Li Yang, who Is that man Li? Yang's voice was a little hoarse, and his tone was very gentle. Just a friend. Kinj said. Friend? Li Yang's eyes suddenly opened again. He stood up, flashed in front of Kinj, and hugged her. The two faces were less than 5 centimeters apart. He said word by word, you know my temper. You and that man have been in the house for more than an hour. I trust you, so I didn't arrange anyone in the house. I hope you won't let me down. After that, he bit Kingi's shoulder. He didn't see that Kinj's eyes flashed with extreme disgust and murderous intent. The blood stained the clothes on her shoulders red. Kinj felt pain and pushed Li Yang away. Li Yang licked the red blood on his lips, looked directly into Kinj's eyes, and said, you must remember that you are my woman. Kinj said, since you said I'm your woman, why don't you listen to my advice and change the current operating rules of Wuoyang Manor? Ha ha ha. Li Yang laughed up to the sky, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He held Kinj's shoulders and leaned up, his breath hitting Kinj's face. He said, ants are just ants. Whether they are alive or dead, God will not be affected. Kinj took a deep breath and said, then am I also an ant in your eyes? Li Yang sneered, then took a few steps back and said, not yet. He thought for a while and said, when I become stronger, you will be an ant, but don't worry, you are the special one. I won't. Boom. He suddenly stamped his feet, startling Kingi, and then smiled evilly. I'll step on you to death. Ha 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 ha. After saying that, he suddenly laughed like a madman. Kinj looked at him like this and couldn't help but clench her fists. She smelled the blood on her shoulder and turned to walk downstairs, muttering something that only she could hear. Got ant. Ridiculous. If that's the case, then I, an ant, will let you know what it means to kill God. Luo Ren's feet were very fast, and he soon arrived at the Shuang service area. Except for the rain stopping, nothing else had changed here. He stood in front of the supermarket and shouted inside, I'm back. As soon as the voice fell, footsteps were heard in the supermarket, and then Lin Ya ran out, and Hao Yuan followed behind him, scratching his whole body. Lin Ya shouted in her pleasant voice, Brother Luo, you are back. Have you settled the things in Wuoyang Manor? Luo Ren smiled and said, let's go inside first. When they entering the supermarket, Luo Ren summarized the things he encountered in Wuoyang Manor, and told Lin Ya one by one. Lin Ya was stunned, and said in surprise, Brother Luo, you are too awesome. It's only been a short time, and you hooked up with the deputy owner of the manor, and then you killed the owner of the manor. Luo Ren felt that Lin Ya's wording was inappropriate, and immediately retorted, what are you talking about? How can you say it's hooking up? That's called like-minded. Besides, I helped Kinj kill Li Yang for the sake of justice, so that more than 100,000 people in Wuoyang village could live a happy life. Lin Ya stuck out her tongue and nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, for justice, not for beauty. After a pause, she continued, but, Brother Luo, you are so sure that Kinj will do what she says, won't she become the next Li Yang? Luo Ren pondered for a moment and said, she can tell you the detailed plan, so she is still worthy of trust, and if she becomes the next Li Yang, he sneered, then kill her again, and replace her with someone else. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Airstrike. The orange flames were beating, dissipating heat and illuminating Lin Ya's blushing face, making her look even cuter. Although the heat of the charcoal fire hit her face, Lin Ya could feel the indifference in Luo Ren's words, which made her understand that, if Kingi really became the next Li Yang, Luo Ren would really kill her, and find someone to replace her. In this way, she couldn't help but feel lucky that Li Xian and Li Zixu were both non-Li Yang, so they would never be able to do things like Li Yang's self-proclaimed gods. Looking away from Luo Ren's face and towards the fire, she suddenly exclaimed, yeah, I was too busy talking, and the sweet potatoes were burnt. He picked up the small wooden stick at his feet, then plucked it in the fire, pulling out several fist-sized sweet potatoes with skins that were as black as charcoal. Seeing these sweet potatoes, she pursed her lips, looked at Luo Ren pitifully, and said, "Brother Luo." Luo Ren stretched out his ruthless iron hands to pick up a burnt black sweet potato, patted the plant ash on it, and then broke it open in the middle. Immediately, a strong aroma of sweet potatoes filled the air. Despite the charred appearance, the inside was full of orange-red, very attractive sweet potato flesh. This is a sweet potato brought from the Tenbudo sect. The flesh of the potato is sweet and soft, and it would have cost several yuan a pound in the past supermarkets. Hao Yuan stared at the sweet potato in Luo Ren's hand, eyes wide open, and couldn't stop swallowing. Luo Ren handed 2 sides of sweet potatoes to Lin Yao and Hao Yuan respectively, and said with a smile, "It's okay, it's just that the surface is burnt, but the meat inside is still edible. Monkeys are monkeys." Monkey Yuan Hao eagerly took the sweet potato, and then took a big bite of it, which was so hot that he grinned. In contrast, although Lin Yao was secretive, she ate very gracefully. She carefully peeled off the black char, then blew on it for a while, before taking a small bite. Seeing them eating, Luo Ren was also a little greedy. He picked up another sweet potato, and was about to break it open. Suddenly, a system voice sounded in his ears. "Alarm, alarm, alarm. The self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery air defense system detects that an air target is rapidly approaching the base. Is it authorized to fire? Aerial target?" Luo Ren frowned and asked secretly, "Can you confirm what the target is?" "The target is the Tsar Army's main battle helicopter, Z-10, one in total. There is only one Z-10. Hearing this answer, Luo Ren had to think carefully. After all, there was only one Z-10. It didn't look like it was coming for an air raid. Alarm, alarm, alarm. The target will enter the dangerous range in 30 seconds. Should air defense interception be implemented? Once again reminded, and with only 30 seconds to think about it, Luo Ren's mind was running rapidly. After weighing the pros and cons, he made up his mind and immediately ordered, "Remain on the highest alert. If the opponent fires and attacks, you can use the air defense system. If the opponent does not fire, it is not an air attack, and we cannot act rashly." Bite. The order has been issued, and the self-propelled anti-aircraft system is always ready. The sound of the system faded away, but Luo Ren still frowned. At this time, he was wondering who the people on Z-10 were, and why they came to the base. Seeing Luo Ren's frown, Lin Ya couldn't help but feel curious and asked, "Brother Luo, what's wrong with you?" Hao Yuan also looked over at this time, with big eyes, full of doubts, and scratched his head, obviously also curious about what happened to Luo Ren. When Luo Ren heard this, he immediately came back to his senses, felt the 2 eyes, waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. I was thinking about something just now." "What's going on?" Lin Ya's curiosity came out of nowhere, and as soon as she opened her mouth, she couldn't stop talking. She stared with big curious eyes and asked, "Say it quickly, say it quickly." However, after 3 seconds, Luo Ren didn't answer. She spoke again. "Brother Luo, I don't think you are thinking about things, but you seem to be thinking about people." She raised her eyebrows, raised the corner of her mouth, leaned forward, and then said, "Brother Luo, are you thinking about Vice Master King of Wuang Village?" She touched her chin again, looked up at the ceiling, and said with a sad look on her face, "If Brother Luo falls in love with Vice Villa Master King of Wuang Villa, what will Sister Zixu do?" Luo Ren's brain was boiling when he heard this. What was this? When did he say that he liked Kinj? And what happened to Li Zixu? We only got together for a few days, so what should we do? This, a Z-10 armed helicopter was flying in the hazy drizzle. Inside the cockpit, there were 3 seats. The captain was in the front seat, and the 2 seats in the back were for the co-pilot and Xia Chuan. The captain suddenly said, "Report to the deputy commander. We will arrive at Chiang City in 3 minutes. Hearing this, Xia Chuan nodded and said, "Stay calm and try not to scare the people in the city." The captain responded, "Yes. Chiang City, mobile base." Woo woo woo. Suddenly, for some unknown reason, various alarm lights of the mobile base flashed, and there was an electronic warning sound. Air raid siren. Air raid siren. Air raid siren. So, and Tong immediately put down the information at hand, rushed out of the mobile base, and looked at the sky. She did not see any air threats, but the alarm sound of the mobile base behind her continued point. She knew that there was absolutely no way that the mobile base was broken, and that something was definitely going to happen. She ran towards the inner city military area without saying a word. Arriving at the inner city military area, she saw Luo Ren, Luo He and others commanding thousands of escorts to assemble. She immediately stepped forward and asked, "What's going on with Luo Ren?" The base was just moved, and there was an air raid alert. As the squadron leader of the escort army, Luo Ren was very aware of the so-called air raid warning, because he had already received Luo Ren's order, keep the highest level of vigilance. If the opponent fires and attacks, you can use the air defense system. If the opponent does not fire, it is not an air attack, and we must not act rashly. He explained to Su and Tong. Our air defense system discovered that a Z-10 armed helicopter was approaching the base quickly. However, there is no need to worry. Our self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery air defense system is ready. As long as the other party fires first, we will knock it down. Su and Tong was confused. She knew that the Z-10 was the main battle helicopter of the Zaire army. The person on it must be someone from the military, but she didn't know who it was. Although she didn't know who was piloting the plane or the purpose of the people on the plane, she felt at ease and was not in a hurry because her brother had only come to Chiang City for research half a month ago, and all the data were in line with or even exceeded the military sets. Can exist indicators based on such investigation results. The military had no reason to launch an air attack on Chiang City Point at this moment. The roar of the sky engine stopped. When I looked up again, I could already see a black spot. Soon, the black spot quickly enlarged, and then I saw a pure black Z-10 armed helicopter. The Z-10 flew to and circled over Chiang City, then slowly lowered its altitude. After reaching a certain distance, it suddenly shouted, "I'm Zhao Juan, Deputy Commander of the H-City Military Division, requesting to land." Chapter 292. We can afford it. I'm Zhao Juan, Deputy Commander of the H-City Military Division, requesting to land. The roar of the engine of the Z-10 armed helicopter has long attracted the attention of many residents of Chiang City, and the shouts at this time spread throughout Chiang City. Luo Ren withdrew his gaze from the helicopter, turned to Su and Tong, and asked, "Captain Su, the commander ordered you to temporarily take charge of Chiang City. This armed helicopter does not appear to have come from an air raid. Do you want to allow it to land?" Decision. Su and Tong thought deeply for a while and said, "Let it land in the open space of the new city." Clear. Luo Ren responded, immediately picked up the walkie-talkie, pressed the call button, and ordered, "Allow the other party to land in the open space in the new city." A voice came out from the intercom, "Roger." In the Z-10 cockpit, the captain looked to the ground and saw a large circle of dozens of people in the open space in the new area of Chiang City. These dozens of people were holding red flags in their hands to express their meaning. As a senior pilot, the captain could naturally see it, and he said, "Deputy Commander, the other party agrees to our landing." Hearing this, Zhao Juan also looked at the ground. When he saw the big circle, he immediately ordered, "Land." After the order was given, Luo Ren, Luo He, Su and Tong and others boarded the car and rushed towards the place where the helicopter was going to land in Xinjiang district. When they arrived, the helicopter had landed smoothly. Zhao Juan and the two pilots had also come out of the cockpit. Surrounding them are dozens of armed escort soldiers. Although there are only 3 of them, the necessary vigilance is still necessary. Su and Tong greeted the general and said, "Deputy Commander Zhao has come from afar. Welcome. Please get in the car. It's raining heavily here. Let's talk in the reception room if you have anything to say." Zhao Juan did not refuse, and he and the 2 pilots boarded the vehicle prepared by Su and Tong, and then started several vehicles at the same time, turning around and returning to the inner city. Arriving at the reception room soon, a few people sat across from each other. As the saying goes, if there is nothing wrong, go to the 3 treasures hall. Zhao Juan's sudden visit without any warning must be something. Su and Tong was the first to ask, "Deputy Commander Zaire is here for something?" The ammunition I borrowed last time has not been returned yet, so I'm a little embarrassed to borrow it again this time, but there is nothing I can do about it. As Liu Yangnian said, if you apply for ammunition support from the military region, it will definitely not be approved in a day or two. And after Shang Feng agreed to the application, it would take a full day for the ammunition to be delivered. For the Wasteland Military District, which urgently needs to replenish ammunition, it cannot wait for such a long time. To be honest, I came here specifically to borrow weapons and ammunition. When faced with inquiries, Xia Chuan did not intend to beat around the bush, but went straight to the point and explained his purpose directly. Borrow weapons and ammunition. Are you being attacked by zombies again? Suan Tong asked. Xia Chuan nodded and said, yes, zombies have become active again in recent days. Today, we have been attacked by large-scale zombies 3 times. And instead of using the previous fishing style consumption methods, this time the zombies are directly attacking. Without the weapons and equipment previously supported by the Grand Military Region, the Wasteland Military Region would have fallen by now. Suan Tong said, are the 3 large-scale zombie sieges all quasi-level 3 zombie groups? Xia Chuan said, yes, each zombie group is led by a quasi-level 3 zombie, and the total number is tens of thousands. I don't know how these zombies can gather such a large group of zombies 3 times in a row in such a short period of time. And Tong knocked on the table and suddenly looked at Luoshan. Luoshan was very upright and said, you are the temporary city lord. You decide whether to lend weapons or ammunition. He had no choice but to look away. After thinking about it for a long time, he was about to answer when he heard, ding ding ding. The voice came from Xia Chuan and immediately attracted the attention of other people in the room. Under everyone's gaze, Xia Chuan took out a palm-sized satellite phone from his pocket and apologized to Suan Tong, Luoshan and others. Sorry, I take a call. The satellite phone that Xia Chuan carried with him was not Liu Yangnian's satellite phone, but several satellite phones were also sent to facilitate communication when the military region sent weapons and supplies. Suan Tong slightly and said, you can do whatever you want. After hearing this, Xia Chuan pressed the connect button in front of everyone, then put the satellite phone to his ear and said, hello, Commander. Put it aside before borrowing ammunition. You and Z-10 come back quickly to help the entire army evacuate the military division. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard Liu Yangnian's anxious voice on the other end of the phone. They couldn't help but be surprised. From Liu Yangnian's anxious words, it could be heard that the situation was very urgent, but they had to figure out what happened so that they could make corresponding preparations. Otherwise, they would go back without a clue and might not be able to help. Bad things will happen. Xia Chuan asked. I'm now in Chiang City. Commander, what is the specific situation there? I just received news from the Grand Military Region that there is a zombie riot in the urban area of H City and they are constantly pouring into the suburbs. The zombies that attacked us came from the urban area. It is roughly estimated that there are millions of zombies in the city. With the zombies constantly pouring out, our strategy of borrowing ammunition and resisting alone is completely unworkable. Therefore, now that we are evacuating the military subdivision, saving the lives of thousands of soldiers is the top priority. Liu Yangnian's words were very brief and only conveyed the key points. Xia Chuan was shocked after hearing this. Millions of zombies were continuously pouring into the suburbs. Such a continuous and uninterrupted trend would definitely not be able to withstand the Wasteland Military Zone. Evacuation was indeed the wisest choice. But, after the evacuation, where should the thousands of soldiers go? He couldn't help but look at Suan Tong, Luoshan, Luohe and others, and thought of the towering and solid city walls, the morale-boosting and well-equipped soldiers. Yes. Facing such a severe challenge, it seems that only Chiang City and H City can withstand it. He retracted his gaze and asked, Commander, where are we going after we evacuate the military sub-district? The other side was silent for a few seconds before answering. Xia Chuan, you said you are in Chiang City now. After a few seconds of silence, he said, you discuss with them and accept us into the city to avoid risks temporarily. Xia Chuan replied in a heavy voice, yes. He hung up the phone, pondered for a while, organized what to say next in his mind, took a deep breath, looked at Suan Tong with a stern expression, and said in a very serious tone, "Captain Su, we are in big trouble." Suan Tong looked at his expression and listened to his tone. He judged that he was not exaggerating and couldn't help but frown slightly. He was relaxed in the last second, but he was so solemn after answering the phone. I don't know what was said on the other end of the phone. Driven by doubts in her heart, she asked, "What disaster, Zia?" Chuan did not hide anything and told him everything about the zombie riot in the city that Liu Yangnian had told him. After hearing the news, the people present, including Luo Shan, Luo He and other guards, did not react much, but Suan Tong was shocked. As Zia Chuan said, "This was indeed a disaster, brother. Ren has not returned yet, and I have encountered this disaster again. What should I do?" Suan Tong was anxious in her heart and could not help but miss Luo Ren. If Luo Ren was by her side, she would not be afraid of anything, because Luo Ren could stand up for her. Luo Shan noticed Suan Tong's subtle expression, and thinking of Luo Ren's instructions to assist Suan Tong, he said, "What about 1,000,000 zombies? Our Chiang city walls are as strong as mountains, and the city is self-sufficient. Even if these zombies surround the entire Chiang city, they can only fight a war of attrition with us, and we can afford it." Chapter 293. Luo Ren did not lie. Luo Shan's confident words gave Suan Tong great encouragement, and her worries were immediately reduced by half. Zia Chuan heard this and echoed, "Captain Luo Shan is right. Chiang City's walls are strong, its soldiers are powerful, and its defense power is amazing. It far exceeds that of the Wasteland military region. It can easily resist millions of zombies." At this point, he suddenly paused and carefully observed the expressions and changes in the eyes of Suan Tong, Luo Shan and others. He only saw Suan Tong's expression of surprise, obviously not expecting that he would agree so much. He was not surprised by Suan Tong's expression of surprise. After all, as a military person, it would indeed be surprising to praise a local power in a flattering manner. He also felt a little embarrassed in his heart, but it didn't matter if he risked his own face for thousands of comrades in the military division. He continued, "Actually, there is one more thing I didn't tell you during the call just now." Others cast their gazes one after another, and he said, "Commander Liu has planned to abandon the military division and evacuate all the thousands of troops, and there must be a place to stay after the evacuation. The place." He suddenly stood up, bowed 90 degrees to Suan Tong, Luo Shan, Luo He and others, and said solemnly, "Please also ask Chiang City to allow us to enter the city to avoid the crisis temporarily." Suan Tong now understands why Zia Chuan had said such flattering words just now. It turned out that he had something to ask for, and it was a matter of life and death. It stands to reason that her brother is from the military. Liu Yangnian is Liu Liangxin's father, and Luo Ren also sent troops to save the Wasteland military region and fought alongside Zia Chuan and the others. With the blessing of these relationships, it is not impossible to admit people from the Wasteland military region into the city to temporarily avoid the crisis. However, the people in the Wasteland military region are not ordinary people. They are all professional soldiers. The quality of individual soldiers is better than that of the soldiers of the Sky March. Not weaker than the guard soldiers. It is extremely risky for such a group of professional soldiers to enter the city point. If Luo Ren were here, everything would be decided by him. No one would object to anything he decided, even if it was wrong. But the key now is that Luo Ren is not in Chiang City, so she has to make the decision at the moment. After hesitating for a long time, she said, "This matter is too important to give an immediate answer. We need to hold an internal meeting to discuss it." Zia Chuan knew very well that he would not give an immediate answer to this kind of matter, but the current situation was urgent, so he thought hard and said, "I also know that this matter is too abrupt, and a meeting is definitely needed to discuss it. However, the commander has ordered a retreat today. You think this is a good idea? Our army will retreat outside Chiang City first and wait for the results of your discussions before we make plans, do you think?" Suan Tong looked at Luo Shan, Luo He and other escorts again and saw that they all nodded, so she withdrew her gaze and said, "Okay, this method is feasible. Xia Chuan felt slightly relieved. If he was not rejected directly, he would have a chance. He stood up, clasped his fists and said, "In that case, I will return to the military division now, to assist in the retreat." After sending Xia Chuan away, Suan Tang held an emergency meeting. The discussion focused on whether to agree to the entry of thousands of soldiers from the wasteland military region into the city. Chuang service area. The fire was still burning, and the heat dissipated all the coldness of the rainy night. Hao Yuan sat against the wall, his eyes closed tightly, and there was a sound of deep sleep between his breaths. Lin Ya was holding a small wooden stick to pull the fire. It seemed that there were roasted sweet potatoes in the fire. At the same time, she looked at Luo Ren from time to time, who closed his eyes and rested. Luo Ren's eyes suddenly opened, and his gaze met Lin Ya's looking over. He smiled slightly and said, "Aren't you asleep yet?" Lin Ya nodded and said, "Can't sleep." At night, Lin Ya's chatty skills seemed to have been sealed, and her whole person became more depressed. Luo Ren then looked outside the door. It was already dark, but the rain did not stop, and he could hear the sound of rain. He stood up and walked to the door, listened to the sound of rain for a long time, stretched, and then warned, "I'm going to Wuang village now, Xiaoya, you stay here and wait for me to come back, yeah?" Lin Ya nodded. Luo Ren said no more and rushed into the rainy night, his back disappearing into the darkness. Lin Ya was stunned. Wuangxiang, or three-story building. Kinj sat upright on the chair, exposing her white shoulders. It was like a footprint suddenly appeared on the snow in the early morning after a night of snow. However, the footprint on her shoulder was not a footprint, but the marks of teeth. The young girl Lingling was applying medicine to the wound and cursed, damn Li Yang, I don't think Sister Kinj will wait until 3 days and kill him tonight." Listening to the girl's curse, Kinj didn't answer. She looked at herself in the mirror in a daze. In just 1 year, she had changed a lot. Rule Wuangxiang, change the world, and take on a new look. Can I really do it? Suddenly he sighed, his heart full of worries, and said to himself, he said he would help me kill Li Yang, and help me seize the position of the leader of Wuang village. Is he really so kind? What he said was that Wuangxiang was needed, and why? All of this is really like a dream. He left then, and has not come back yet. Could it be that he ran away? Are all the things he said lying to me? The girl felt Kinj's worry and knew why she was worried, because before that, Kingy had mentioned to her many times why the man hadn't come back yet. Could it be that he had rubbed oil on his soles and slipped away? In fact, she had already decided in her heart that the man must have run away. After all, men are not good things. Her hands were very deft, and she quickly applied medicine to Kinj and bandaged her. She gently lifted Kinj's clothes and said softly, "Sister Kinj, it's done." Kinj was still staring at herself in the mirror in a daze. She didn't agree to her words, and she didn't care. She put the medicine back in its place. Hearing the sound of raindrops hitting the glass window, she couldn't help but look out the window. In the dark night, except for the traces of raindrops sliding on the glass window, she couldn't see anything else. She walked to the window and wanted to draw the curtains. Suddenly, ding ding ding, the sound of knocking on the glass startled her. She looked forward suddenly, and a familiar face suddenly came into her sight. She said in surprise, "Luo," realizing that her voice was too loud. She immediately covered her mouth, slowed down for a while, and whispered, "Luo Ren." How could Kinj not notice such a movement? Hearing the word Luo Ren, she immediately woke up from her daze, got up quickly, and walked over quickly. Seeing Luo Ren outside the window, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. This man didn't lie to her. He didn't run away. Luo Ren gestured to them to open the window. It was unknown whether the two women didn't understand or they did it on purpose. It took a lot of effort for them to understand and then opened the window and let him in. His clothes were soaked, his hair was stuck to his head, and it was still dripping with rain. Kinj was stunned for 2 seconds and hurriedly said, "Lingling, go get some clean clothes." The girl Lingling saw that Luo Ren did not run away, and she liked him a little more. After hearing Kinj's order, she did not move and stammered, "Well, we don't have men's clothes here." Kinj looked at Lingling, frowned slightly, and then looked at Luo Ren apologetically. Just as she was about to apologize, she saw Luo Ren waved his hand and said, "It's okay, my clothes dry quickly." Kinj felt even more sorry when she heard this and hurriedly apologized. "Sorry, brother, I'm all girls here and I didn't think of preparing men's clothes." Luo Ren still waved his hand and said, "It's okay." He stared at Kinj for a while and saw that her eyes were red and couldn't help asking, "What's wrong with your eyes?" Kinj hurriedly said, Nothing, just sand got into my eyes." Rubbing her eyes, she said again, "Ling Ling, go and arrange housing for my brother." "Yes." After the girl Ling Ling responded, she turned and left. Only Luo Ren and Kinj were left. Luo Ren looked around and didn't know what to say for a moment. Kinj walked slowly and moved behind Luo Ren. She took off his soaked coat for him and said, "Wring out the water in the clothes so it will dry faster." Luo Ren felt two pink and tender hands on his shoulders, as if he was electrocuted. He quickly took off his coat and said with a smile, "Thank you." Kinj's hand was still frozen in the air. She was stunned for a while before she retracted it. She smiled and said, "Brother, please sit down." Luo Ren smiled bitterly and shook his head, refusing. "I'm all wet, so I'd better stand for a while." Kinj was stunned again and then said, "Brother, wait a moment, I'll make you a pot of hot tea to drive away the cold." This time Luo Ren didn't refuse and nodded, "Thank you." Kinj smiled, said later, and went to pour tea for Luo Ren. Luo Ren looked around. This should be Kinj's boudoir. At that time, he was puzzled. Didn't Feng Bao say that she and Li Yang lived in the villa on the top of the mountain? It was understandable that she was here during the day, but how could Li Yang not think of such a beautiful woman at night? After a moment, he was relieved. After all, Li Yang was the master of a manor. He had all kinds of women. He probably had 3,000 beauties in his harem. According to his guess, the reason why Kinj wanted to kill Li Yang was probably because of this reason in addition to what she said during the day. With such a guess, he couldn't help but think of Kinj's action of taking off his clothes just now and thought to himself, "This woman is not interested in me." He rubbed his eyebrows and dispelled the strange thoughts in his mind. He didn't think about it any further. Anyway, he just wanted someone who could help him manage Luoyang Manor. Chapter 294 On the verge of breaking out. The sky is blue and the sun is high. It looks like it should be a very hot day, but it is not, because the potholes on the ground are still filled with water from the heavy rains of the past 2 days. Read at this time, at the east gate of Chiang City, standing on the city wall and looking out of the city, you can see densely packed tents and soldiers with guns patrolling between the tents. Faced with such a scene, although the Xianxing army soldiers on duty remained highly vigilant, they did not make a fighting stance, because the soldiers outside the city were none other than Xia soldiers who had evacuated from the wasteland military region. Suddenly I heard footsteps, and someone was climbing up the city wall on the stairs, and there was more than one person. The approaching Xian march soldiers subconsciously looked back. When they saw the person coming, they immediately saluted and said, "I have seen you, sirs." The visitors were none other than Suan Tong, Liu Liangxin, Luo Shan, Luo Hei, etc. Xia Chuan and Liu Yangnian were also among them. Suan Tong glanced outside the city, then looked at Liu Yangnian, and said, "Commander Liu, since the agreement has been reached, let your people prepare quickly." Liu Yangnian had a faint smile on his face, nodded, and said, "Xia Chuan, go and ask the brothers to hand over the firearms and hand them over to the guards for the time being." "Yes." Xia Chuan responded, then turned around and quickly walked down the city wall, and then went outside the city to do what Liu Yangnian ordered. They are all professional soldiers, and obeying orders is their bounden duty. Therefore, after thousands of soldiers outside the city received the order, although some of them were worried that they would have no weapons, if the other party made unfavorable actions, it would be difficult for them to resist, but they still had no chance. Nonsense. He didn't hesitate to turn in his firearms, and he didn't hide any secrets. Their movements were very fast. Within an hour, thousands of firearms were all piled on 3 large trucks. Then under Luo Shan's order, the escort soldiers drove the large trucks to the inner city military area to temporarily manage these firearms. After removing the firearms, the combat effectiveness of the thousands of soldiers in the wasteland military region was reduced by almost 80%, and the threat was greatly reduced. Suan Tong immediately ordered the city gates to be opened and let thousands of Xia soldiers enter the city. It was discussed in advance that after these thousands of people entered the city, they would be allocated a temporary residence in the new city area. There would be no houses or anything like that, because among the hundreds of thousands of people in the city, nearly half of them did not have fixed housing, so they still only had houses. Can live in the military tent that comes with it. Liu Yangnian felt that there was nothing unreasonable about this, and they all had shelter from wind and rain, a place to live, and the tent was not much different from a house. Thousands of Xia soldiers quickly packed up their living tents. At this moment, the sound of helicopter engines fell from high altitude and fell clearly into everyone's ears. This helicopter is not a Z-10, but a storm-armed helicopter with red and blue tones, and its shape is as beautiful as the Z-10. Liu Yangnian and Xia Chuan already knew that there was a city outside the south of Chiang City. Looking from a distance, among them the architecture is very seafy point, especially the largest building in the shape of a fighter plane shocked them. At the same time, they became more and more curious about Luo Ren. Whether it was the tall city walls, the powerful weapons that were not Xia Kingdom standard equipment, and the guards whose military quality was no weaker than that of professional soldiers. These are all too fantastic. The storm-armed helicopter flew to the east city of Chiang City and hovered over it. Then the pilot on the plane shouted, "A large group of zombies was found 5 kilometers away. It is roughly estimated that the number should be 30,000 to 40,000. It is expected to arrive in 1 to 2 hours. The pilot said this 3 times, and the lingering sound lingered over Chiang City. Suan Tong frowned, thinking, it seems that the military's news is accurate. The zombies in H City are indeed flocking to the suburbs. She looked into the distance and said to herself, it's been almost a month. Brother Ren, when will you come back? After coming back to his senses, he looked at Liu Yangnian and said, Commander Liu, the corpses are about to attack. Tell your people to move faster and enter the city quickly. Liu Yangnian nodded. In fact, there was no need for him to give orders. Xia Chuan was already urging after hearing the news. Those soldiers were not fools, and their movements at hand automatically moved much faster. Suan Tong then looked at Luo Shan and said, with a group of 30 to 40,000 corpses, it is difficult to just rely on the sky march. I suggest that some guards be called in to coordinate the defense. Also, Brother Ren is not in the city. The strongest individual in the city is currently only the peak level 2 evolver. It is very likely that there are level 3 zombies in such a large group of corpses. Light weapons are of little use against level 3 zombies. They should be used. Heavy firepower weapons such as individual artillery and heavy machine guns are fully erected. There are also storm-armed helicopters that must be prepared for battle. If they encounter level 3 zombies or near level 3 zombies, they can use sharp arrow missiles to directly bomb. Okay. Luo Shan agreed with Suan Tong's defensive strategy. Sometimes, you have to use your knives to kill the chicken in order to eliminate the danger efficiently. The soldiers of the Xia Kingdom cleaned up very quickly. The mobilization ability of the escorts and the speed of weapons transfer were also very efficient. In less than an hour, a heavy machine gun was erected every 25 meters on the east city wall, and each heavy machine gun contained an individual artillery piece point apart from these heavy firepower. Although light weapons are not of much use against evolved zombies, they are still very lethal to ordinary zombies, so they are indispensable. Then there is the replenishment of ammunition. Luo Shan has the authority to produce ammunition, so there is no need to worry about ammunition. He only needs to prepare more than 10 heavy trucks for ammunition transportation. Liu Yangnian was stunned to see such a strong internal mobilization capability. This was really just a local force. Not to mention military quality, not to mention weapons and equipment. The ammunition reserve was almost comparable to that of a large military region. At this time, thousands of Xia soldiers had entered the city. Under the leadership of more than 100 days of marching, they came to the temporary residence planned for them. Seeing that the guards and the soldiers of the Xiangxing army were so ready, they also wanted to help. Unfortunately, their weapons and equipment were taken away. They had no choice but to put all their strength on setting up the military tent. Suan Tang was kind enough to ask the almost idle residents in the city to come and help, which was also considered to boost employment for the day. The sky was still blue, the wind was still sunny, and in such a peaceful weather, tens of thousands of zombies attacked, like a group of demons crawling out of hell. The pupils of ordinary zombies were dull, and the eyes of evolved zombies below level 2 were full of desire for flesh and blood. Among the evolved zombies above level 2, except for the huge and unhidden power zombies, the remaining thin speed zombies hid in the zombies, making it difficult for humans to find them. The evolved zombies let out violent or sharp roars, and when these sounds fell, tens of thousands of zombies collectively climaxed, and their steps became faster, with their teeth and claws bared. Facing the towering walls, they resolutely swarmed up. The guards did not tolerate them. At Luo Shan's order, there was a chorus of gunfire, and countless bullets were like the heavy rain in the past 2 days, splashing at the attacking zombies. With a deafening roar, several storm-armed helicopters took off at the same time, looking down at the walking dead on the ground, and the large caliber machine guns spit out dazzling flames, and the bullets drew dazzling lines of fire in the air, shooting at those walking dead. The war was about to break out. Chapter 295 Taking Action. Part 1. A ray of sunlight entered the room from the window and shone on Luo Ren's body. The sunlight was dazzling. His eyelids moved, and then he raised his right arm to block the dazzling sunlight. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. At this moment, Luo Ren really wanted to grow a third arm so that he could block the sun, block his ears, and not be awakened by the rapid knock on the door. He opened his eyes, took a deep breath, then got off the bed, walked to the door, and said, "Here he comes." Opening the door, the girl Lingling immediately appeared in his sight. He asked, "What's wrong?" Lingling said, "Today is the Wuang festival, and vehicles have been prepared at the door." A short sentence, but the meaning is not simple. Luo Ren nodded and asked, "Where is Kinj?" Lingling said, "Sister Kinj is the deputy owner of the village and the wife of the village owner in name only. She will attend the Wuang festival in costumes with Li Yang, and accept the worship of all the people of Wuang." All people worship. This Li Yang is really good at playing. Luo Ren thought to himself, then waved his hand and said, "I know. Eyelines pack up," and set off immediately. The girl Lingling bowed slightly and retreated from the place. Luo Ren moved quickly and put on the Wuang festival dress prepared by Kinj. He took 2 steps in the dress and felt uncomfortable. He complained, "This thing is really uncomfortable. It's too tight." He had no choice but to make do, changed his clothes, and went straight downstairs. After going out, there was a car. Although this car did not have the pattern of dragons and phoenixes flying around, it had a very fancy picture of birds. I really don't know if it's Li Yang's rule or Kinj likes this style. The girl Lingling was already waiting in the car. When Luo Ren got on the car, she immediately urged the driver to set off. On the way, she handed Luo Ren a note. Luo Ren took it and looked at it, and it was written on it, "Break the cup as a sign." After learning the content, he expressionlessly crushed the note with his fingers. The car drove onto the main road of Wukio and headed towards the top of the mountain. It seemed that the Wuang festival was held at the top of the mountain, which was not far away, so it arrived quickly. At this time, there were many vehicles parked on the top of the mountain, all with bells and whistles. One of them was very familiar to Luo Ren. It was golden in color and had to impress him deeply. The bird cart he and the girl Lingling were riding in also attracted a lot of attention, all of which were men. In fact, there were very few independent and powerful women on this mountaintop. Although Lingling is young, she is a popular person around the deputy owner of the village. Therefore, almost everyone in Wuang village knows about her bird cart. Therefore, after the two got off the car, these people's eyes immediately fell on it. Until Lingling point in the eyes of these men, a powerful woman like Lingling can give them a strong desire to conquer, so their eyes are filled with heat when they look over her. When they saw Luo Ren getting off the bird cart with Lingling, they all frowned and immediately became suspicious. For these men, Lingling's eyes showed undisguised disgust. She glanced at Luo Ren, and suddenly her eyes lit up. She grabbed Luo Ren's arm and rested her head on Luo Ren's shoulder. Luo Ren was confused by her move, and the men were even more stunned, and then started talking about it. Who is this? Damn it, if you dare to snatch the woman I like, don't stop me. You must kill him today. Okay, 6th, you can't afford to offend that guy. Feng Bao, what do you mean, I can't offend him? Let me show you whether I can offend him or not. Among the crowd, a person stepped out and walked straight towards this side. From the conversation, Feng Bao called this person Liu Liu. Luo Ren speculated that this person should be the 6th elder of Wuang village. Seeing him coming towards her angrily, he immediately understood why the girl did this and gave her a helpless look. Boy, what's your name? Are you tired of living? If you dare to snatch my woman. The 6th elder came up and questioned him in a very harsh tone. Luo Ren had an idea and pulled out the arm held by Lingling, then pushed it towards the 6th elder and said, since she is your woman, now, I give it to you. Lingling couldn't help but be stunned. Why is this different from what she imagined? In her expectation, Luo Ren should take a tough stance and start directly, but now, not only her, but also the 6th elder and everyone paying attention to this matter were stunned. The 6th elder came to his senses first, looked at Lingling, then pointed at Luo Ren and cursed. You are really not a man, pushing your own woman out like this. He looked at Lingling again, looking like a big brother, and said, Lingling, don't worry, let me help you teach this scumbag a lesson. Hiss. Luo Ren took a breath. This thing really deserves a beating. Not only did he not give up on his face, he also had his own face swollen to make him fat. Just when the 6th elder was about to take action, and when the onlookers were about to watch the excitement, suddenly a voice like an ancient palace eunuch came from the villa in front, and only the words could be heard. The owner and deputy owner of the village are here. Hearing this sound, the 6th elder's raised fist froze in midair for a few seconds. Then he quickly put it down, and then looked at the balcony of the villa in front of him. Everyone present turned their attention to the terrace. Luo Ren glanced over and also looked at the terrace. At this moment, no one spoke, and many people even held their breath. The scene was so quiet that you could hear the sound of the breeze. Suddenly, footsteps sounded. Dap, dap, dap. The intervals between each sound were the same, very rhythmic. Under the gaze of the crowd, a man and a woman in gorgeous clothes stepped onto the terrace shoulder to shoulder. The woman wore a phoenix crown, a golden red phoenix robe, and her makeup was also very elegant and luxurious, like an ancient queen. This woman was Kinj. The man wore a 12-tassel crown, a 5-clawed golden dragon robe. His eyebrows were like swords, his eyes were like torches, and he looked majestic without anger. There was no need to guess. This person must be the owner of Wuang Manor, Li Yang. Seeing such a scene, Luo Ren secretly complained. Dragon robe, crown. This Li Yang calls himself a god, but he also made an emperor ascend the throne. It can be seen that the emperor in ancient times called himself the son of heaven. The son of heaven. Is he going to be a god or the son of God? Performed the ceremony of kneeling and worshipping by all the people. The eunuch's voice sounded again, echoing throughout Wukyu. The moment the voice fell, everyone on the scene, except Luo Ren, knelt and kowtowed, shouting, Wuang Supreme, the god descended from the sky. For thousands of years, all living beings submit. Wuang Supreme, the god descended from the sky. For thousands of years, all living beings submit. Dozens of people on the top of the mountain shouted at the same time. The sound was already loud, but it was not enough for all the people to worship. Just as Luo Ren thought so in his heart, he heard the sound from the bottom of the mountain, which was really a wave of sound. He couldn't help but look down the mountain, and immediately saw densely packed, more than 100,000 people kneeling and worshipping at the same time, kowtowed to the mountain. Chapter 296, Taking Action, Part 2. The scene of more than 100,000 people bowing down to worship was not spectacular. Instead, Luo Ren clenched his fists and was furious. He was angry at the ignorance of these people and their lack of struggle. Life and death were just the difference between opening and closing eyes, breathing and not breathing. They lived like this, and were exploited and plundered of everything, and died without dignity. But in just a moment, he was relieved again. His indignation dissipated, and his eventually clenched fists loosened. Aren't most people stupid from ancient times to the present? No, it's not like that. After being relieved, he looked at Kinj and Li Yang on the terrace again, and his anger surged again. Yes, there are fools, but they are not born. What these people lack is awakening. Google searched and abandon the foolish thoughts and replace them with non-foolish thoughts. In this way, fools will no longer be fools. Of course, this may take a long time, or even until the next generation of these fools, but it is worth it. Li Yang looked indifferent, as if he wanted to portray himself as a god without emotions. He felt a gaze from the side, and turned his head to look. His sharp gaze was fixed on Luo Ren. Today in Wuoyang manner, except for Kinj and him, this man dared not to kneel. He said indifferently, he is the man you brought in. Although he did not name her, Kinj knew that he was asking her. Facing the question, she was not afraid at all, because what she was going to do today was destined not to be afraid, and she would not be afraid. Her voice was also cold, saying, yes, his name is Luo Ren, my man. When she said the last two words, Kinj deliberately emphasized the tone, just to anger Li Yang. Li Yang's eyes flashed with anger, and he calmed down in an instant. His expression was still indifferent. He claimed to be a god. He could be crazy only in front of Kinj, but in front of everyone, he must be emotionless, because gods are high above, and will never have human emotions. But despite her appearance, Kinj knew that Li Yang was angry, which could be felt from the increasing strength of Li Yang's grip on her hand. She continued, do you know why he became my man? Because, today, he will help me kill you. Her voice was very low, and only she and Li Yang could hear it, so the people below saw the deputy village chief opening his mouth, but they didn't know what he was saying. Li Yang turned his head to look at Kinj and said, kill me, just him. After a pause, he continued, or them? Li Yang suddenly looked at the people kneeling below. Kinj was immediately shocked, and an inexplicable sense of crisis swept over her body. She only heard Li Yang's cold order, do it. As soon as Li Yang's voice fell, most of the people kneeling immediately stood up, retreated a few steps together, and surrounded the people who had not stood up, and were still kneeling on the ground. Luo Ren and Ling Ling were also in the encirclement. Luo Ren smiled and said, it seems that there is no need to smash the cup as a signal. I didn't expect that. Xiang Guang, you are also participating in the rebellion. Someone suddenly shouted. Among the people who were kneeling, one of them stood up first. This man was strong, with a big beard, and exuded a fierce aura. On the terrace, Li Yang asked, Xiang Guang, I treated you well, and gave you the position of the first elder, second only to me, and Kinj in Wuoyang manner. Why did you betray me? Xiang Guang knew Li Yang's character very well. He knew that, even if he gave in now, even if he begged for mercy with tears and snot, Li Yang might pretend to forgive him, and then he would definitely settle the score later. Besides, he was going to take action today, so why should he be afraid? He laughed wildly at the sky, pointed at Li Yang, and said loudly, the first elder is nothing, I want your woman. He suddenly smiled evilly, looked at Kinj, and said, do you know why I betrayed you? Because your woman said that after the matter is done, she will marry me. Kinj couldn't help but frowned when he said this. It seems that Xiang Guang is not only bloodthirsty, but also brainless. If it weren't for his strong strength, if Luo Ren hadn't arrived a little late, how could she recruit him into the army? Even though Li Yang claimed to be a god, he had always controlled his emotions, but how could he control himself when he was humiliated on the spot like this? In his eyes, murderous intent suddenly emerged. Do it. Unexpectedly, Kinj was alert, took the lead, and shouted sternly. The kneeling people immediately stood up and rushed towards the people who surrounded them. The girl Ling Ling also took action immediately, and the battle broke out suddenly. But strangely, Kinj on the terrace did not relax her brows. Her eyes were not on the people fighting below, nor on Luo Ren, but on everyone else. Isn't it's strange that those women haven't taken action yet? Li Yang smiled coldly and said, you have power in the dark, but is my power only in the light? You. Kinj stared at Li Yang. Li Yang stared at Kinj and said coldly, you are my woman. I don't want to kill you, but you not only associate with ants, but also. He suddenly looked at Luo Ren. The murderous intent in his eyes was like substance. His eyes were like two arrows of murderous intent condensed and shot at Luo Ren, and at the same time one hand grabbed Kinj's snow white neck. He wanted to kill Kinj in front of this man. Kinj felt Li Yang's murderous intent and wanted to dodge, but her hand was always firmly held by Li Yang. The power difference was too great, and she could not break free. Facing the arrows of murderous intent, Luo Ren raised a smile, jumped onto the terrace, faced Li Yang, and said mockingly, "You say you are a god, but I think you are not even as good as a human. Men know not to hit women, but you." Being so calm in front of him, and also saying such a mocking word, made Li Yang's movements freeze. He suddenly smiled, let go of Kinj's hand, and said, "Your new man is quite courageous, but he just doesn't know what he is capable of." Kinj regained her freedom and immediately hid behind Luo Ren. Luo Ren was a little confused when he heard the word new man and couldn't help but look back at Kinj, but Kinj's eyes were averted. Suddenly, Kinj said anxiously, "Be careful." Luo Ren felt the strong wind coming and quickly looked away, only to see the 5 fingers of Li Yang's right hand bent into claws, grabbing straight towards his face. The 5 fingers were extremely fast, piercing the air and making a whining sound. Luo Ren looked indifferent. For him, Li Yang's speed was too slow. With Kinj behind him, it was impossible to dodge. He clenched his fist with his right hand and punched the claws that came through the air. Bang! The next moment, the fists and claws collided, and airwaves visible to the naked eye radiated. Li Yang was shocked, and the huge force from Luo Ren's fist spat out like a tide. His arm could not bear the force, and he only heard a click with a sound. His arm was immediately broken. Luo Ren had to hold back his strength, otherwise one punch could have directly severed Li Yang's arm. He took advantage of the victory and punched Li Yang in the face again, shouting, "You call yourself a god, so today I will kill the god." This punch Luo Ren used 100% of his speed and strength. Even Li Yang, who was about to be a level 3 evolver, could not avoid it. In his horrified pupils, his fist quickly enlarged. He didn't even have time to beg for mercy or scream. Bang! Luo Ren's fist hit his face, and his cheek sunk directly. At the same time, with a click, his neck bones broke instantly, and his unsupported head drooped back, and then the whole person fell on his belly. Go down. Chapter 297 Deserves to be Killed, Part 1. The breeze blew, and 3,000 strands of troubles fluttered. The people under the terrace were still fighting. On the terrace, the sound of Li Yang falling to the ground drowned out other sounds. Luo Ren retracted his fist, and there was still blood on the fist. Deng deng deng. Kinj hurriedly stepped forward a few steps, and saw Li Yang, who was unrecognizable and breathless on the ground. She couldn't help but breathe stagnantly, and her heart seemed to be a glass bottle falling from a high altitude, and shattered all over the ground. At the same time, it was like a bird breaking free from a cage, flapping its wings, and flying high into the sky. At this moment, her heart was very contradictory. Women are so complicated. Luo Ren stepped back, pulled a certain distance, and looked at Kinj's smile, crying, and thought to himself. In his opinion, if you want to kill, don't be sad, otherwise, it will be torturing yourself. He looked at the battlefield under the terrace. This was a battle between a group of evolvers. Every move was tricky and swift, giving off a sense of fighting in a martial arts TV series. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, a deafening roar of engines sounded. When everyone heard the sound, people from different camps immediately distanced themselves and confronted each other. Luo Ren frowned slightly. He saw several steel beast tanks pressing the concrete road to the top of the mountain, and then arranged in a semicircular encirclement. The black missiles and heavy machine guns on the roofs were extremely oppressive. The people on Li Yang's side were overjoyed when they saw these tanks. Feng Bao laughed and pointed at the people on the opposite side, saying, "Our reinforcement have arrived. You just wait to die." After looking at these tanks, Luo Ren determined that these were the main battle tanks of Xia State. He remembered that Lao Chen had said that Wuang village occupied the Dongjiang city military sub-district at the beginning of the last days, so it was not surprising to have tanks. His eyes flickered, and he looked back at Kinj, who was still in a daze, and saw Li Yang's body on the ground. He was not afraid of the tank, but there were so many people below. If these people died, the strength of Wuang Manor would inevitably be greatly reduced. Such unnecessary losses should be avoided as much as possible. And the way to avoid it is Li Yang's body. As long as the people below see their owner, their gods are dead, and give some promises, most people will surrender. Not all. He walked forward, tilted his head, and looked at Kinj, and said, "Are you feeling better? Now is not the time to be in a daze. There are some troubles below that need you to come forward to solve." Hiss. King Yi took a deep breath and calmed down. Luo Ren was right. Now is not the time to be in a daze. She tried hard to squeeze out a smile, but failed in the end. She could only nod and said, "I know how to solve it." After that, she picked up Li Yang's body and walked to the edge of the terrace step by step. At this time, due to the arrival of tanks, the strength of the two sides in the battlefield below was even greater. It can be said that the people on Kinj's side were already at a disadvantage, and now they were directly suppressed, so no one dared to take action first. Even the arrogant, bloodthirsty, and ignorant Xiang Wang had an instinctive intuition that he should not act rashly now. The temporary ceasefire. Li Yang's people thought of the terrace and Li Yang, and many people couldn't help but look at the terrace. At that time, there were still only 2 people on the terrace, but it was not Kinj and Li Yang in memory, but King Yi and another person. Feng Bao shouted, "Luo Ren, when did he go up?" This shout, Kinj's people also cast their eyes on the terrace, and indeed only saw Kinj and Luo Ren. When everyone was puzzled, they saw Kinj suddenly throw something. The shadow passed by everyone, and then the object fell in the middle of the two sides, and everyone's eyes immediately focused on this object. "Ah!" Feng Bao screamed, pointed at the body on the ground, and said in a trembling voice, "Master Zhuang." There was no need for him to remind them. Everyone had eyes, and had seen Li Yang. Almost at the same time, everyone recognized that the body was their master, Li Yang. After a few seconds of silence, the people on Kinj's side cheered excitedly, especially Xiang Wang, who looked at Kinj. This matter was done. Kinj promised him to marry her. He couldn't stop imagining that scene. On the contrary, the people on Li Yang's side looked like they had eaten a dead child. Each of them looked extremely uncomfortable, and some even squeezed out a few tears. Feng Bao walked to Li Yang's body tremblingly, knelt down with a plop, stared with his eyes wide open, and felt that he had difficulty breathing. His hands hovered over the body without knowing where to put them. Finally, he called out, "Master on the terrace." Kinj looked at everyone with a calm expression, and said, "Li Yang calls himself a god, but in fact he is looking for an excuse to destroy his humanity. Have you ever thought about what the final result will be if Wuang Manor continues to develop according to the current model?" After a pause, after everyone thought about the problem, she continued, "Let me tell you the final result. 8 words are enough to summarize it. Total collapse and nothingness. Therefore, I made up my mind, determined to kill Li Yang, so that Wuang village can change the world and establish a sustainable, developable, and new operating system." Her tone suddenly softened a bit. "I know that many of you have done some evil things because of the rules set by Li Yang. As long as you don't do these things again in the future, I won't delve into it." But her eyes suddenly became sharp, and her tone suddenly became cold, saying, "Some people do evil not because they are helpless under Li Yang's policy, but because of their nature. Therefore, I will say it directly. These people must die today, right now, and here." She looked at Lingling and said, "Lingling, give me the list." Lingling immediately jumped onto the terrace and took out the must-kill list from her arms. When everyone below saw the must-kill list, they were all very nervous, wondering if their name was on it. Kinj saw everyone's reaction. She glanced at the list, but did not read out the names immediately. Instead, she raised her lips slightly and stared at everyone. As time went by, everyone who was stared at became frightened and even more nervous. After a long time, someone finally couldn't bear it anymore and suddenly broke out and shouted, "Brothers, we have many people and tanks. Instead of waiting to be judged like this, why not go with us?" They fought hard. After the words fell, the whole place was silent, and no one came to help. These people only gathered together because Li Yang was powerful. If they really wanted to risk their lives and fight to the death, they would not do it. Besides, we don't want to kill everyone, but we want to kill people with extremely evil natures. Many of them think that they are doing some helpless things just to stay alive under Li Yang's policies, and they are not considered to be extremely evil in nature. The person who drank so loudly was none other than the third elder, Chen Jun. Seeing that there was no one to help him, he was embarrassed and scared. He looked towards the terrace and happened to look at Kinj Point. In the past, he could have lusted after this beautiful woman, but now all he had in his heart was fear. When I spoke out, the water was thrown out, my Adam's apple rolled, I swallowed nervously, and then gritted my teeth and said, damn it, no matter what, you will die, I will fight with you. After saying this, Chen Jun rubbed oil on the soles of his feet, turned around and ran away. Old Chen, you are too stubborn. When Xiang Guang saw this, his extreme speed suddenly exploded. He was a mid-level warrior, while Chen Jun was only an early-stage warrior. It only took a matter of minutes to catch up with Chen Jun. In just a moment, they passed Chen Jun and blocked his way. Seeing that he was about to bump into Xiang Guang, Chen Jun stopped hurriedly, glared at Xiang Guang, and asked, Xiang Guang, what you did is even more disgusting than me. If you help that woman deal with me now, you won't be afraid that she will kill you then. Xiang Guang laughed for a while, with endless confidence in his words, and said, after Li Yang dies, I will be Kinj's man from now on. Do you think my woman will kill us? His voice was already loud, and he did not deliberately control the volume. Therefore, everyone present heard the words clearly, including Kinj herself. Killing intent suddenly appeared in Kinj's eyes. She really wanted to kill Xiang Guang now. Suddenly she heard footsteps behind her. It was Luo Ren who was coming, and walked side by side with her. Luo Ren looked at Kinj, smiled, and asked, are you angry? Then he comforted, if you want to achieve something, you need to be patient. Xiang Guang cannot be killed yet, otherwise it will affect the temperament of our personnel, and thus affect the overall situation. Kinj slowly loosened her clenched fists and said, I know, I will first kill all those who are not ours to kill, and then eliminate those who are ours to kill. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Deserves to be Killed, Part 2. Kinj's tone was calm, proving that she had listened to Luo Ren's words. At this time, Xiang Guang and Chen Jun had already taken action. At first, there was back and forth, and Chen Jun could still withstand it. However, after 20 or 30 moves, Chen Jun quickly fell into a disadvantage. As expected, on the 40th move, Xiang Guang's muscles all over his body swelled, and his fist as big as a casserole hit Chen Jun's heart directly. Hearing just a few clicks, it was the sound of the sternum breaking. Chen Jun immediately flew out and hit the thick wall under the terrace. As others slipped down, the masonry debris also fell from the wall, peeling off. It can be seen that the place of impact is covered with cracks. Chen Jun collapsed against the wall, breathing rapidly. Xiang Guang came after him, and when he saw that Chen Jun was not dead yet, his eyes flashed fiercely, and the corner of his mouth raised a cruel smile. The fractured sternum squeezed the heart and even pierced it. At this time, Chen Jun could feel that his life was passing by. He was unable to get up and fight anymore. He could only stare at Xiang Guang resentfully and cursed, you will definitely not be able to do it. Good to die. Xiang Guang smiled still ferociously, bent down and said, don't worry, I won't die, and I will live well. And you, go die. He clasped Chen Jun's neck with one hand, his eyes suddenly sharp, and he squeezed with all his strength. Click. Chen Jun immediately stiffened, the light in his eyes quickly dimmed, and then went out, and the breathing between his mouth and nose also stopped forever at this moment. Xiang Guang threw Chen Jun's body out, and landed it in front of everyone. Everyone was shocked, especially Feng Bao, who was kneeling next to Li Yang's body, and was so frightened that he trembled all over. Kinj did not stop Xiang Guang from killing Chen Jun, because Chen Jun was on the must-kill list. She stared at Chen Jun's body, then looked at the list, and said silently, Zhang Ke, Chen Hao Guang. With every sound, someone was pronounced dead. The expressions of the people corresponding to these names were extremely complicated. People who were not strong or powerful almost cried bitterly and knelt down on the ground. When they heard their names, the strong and powerful people chose to escape, just like Jun Chen. Unfortunately, under such circumstances, they could not escape. After reading the last name, King Yi collected the list. The boulder hanging in the hearts of those whose names had not been read fell to the ground in an instant. They were all extremely nervous. This was a matter of life and death. Xianguang has not yet read out, but Chen Jun is dead, and there are no level 2 evolvers among the remaining damned people. This makes it very convenient to solve the problem. The young girl Lingling and Xianguang take action to kill all these people. After these disasters were solved, Kinch spoke again and said, "Congratulations to you all. Since you were not named, it means that you were just forced to do those helpless actions under Li Yang's orders. Therefore, I will not do anything to you. Any penalties. However, if you do what I did in the past again, I will not be merciful." Seeing their colleagues who had once been equals or even had higher status die in front of them, these people were all frightened. After hearing what Kinch said, they hurriedly responded in unison, "Please don't worry, Mr. King. From now on, only Mr. King will follow his lead. Never do the same thing again." Kinch was very satisfied with this. Suddenly she rolled her eyes, glanced at Luo Ren, and declared on a whim, "From now on, I'm still the deputy owner of the village, and the new owner is Luo Ren." Everyone below was immediately silent. It was the first time for many of them to see Luo Ren. They had not seen the killing of Li Yang just now. Therefore, when Kinch announced that Luo Ren had become the new owner of the village, they did not react. Not only them, but also Luo Ren. He originally had a sunny smile on his face, but when he heard Kinch's announcement, his eyes immediately widened, and the word "confused" was written directly on his face. Even if he was given 10,000 brains, he would never have expected that Kinch would announce him as the new owner of Wuang Village on the spot. This is not a matter of cleverness or lack of flexibility. This is something that has no warning signs at all. There are no signs to follow. Unless he is a god who can count with his fingers, he can know it in advance. I don't accept it. Just as he was about to speak, a loud shout suddenly came from below, and then someone jumped up and landed on the terrace. When he looked closely, he saw that it was a bear with a fierce face. When Xianguang came up, he pointed at Luo Ren and cursed, "No matter what you are not worthy of being the owner of the village." Then he looked at Kinch. His voice was much softer and said, King, you said that when things are done, we will take charge of Wuang together. Village, you are the master of the village, and I'm the deputy master of the village. We are a couple of gods, living happily and carefree." As he said that, he grabbed Kinch's jade hand. Kinch immediately dodged, with murderous intent emerging in her eyes. She originally wanted to arrange things before taking action, but now, she looked at Luo Ren and asked for him permission. Opinion point: being scolded by Xianguang, Luo Ren was also unhappy. This guy's really brainless. Since he wants to die early, then let him be allowed to die. However, Kinch cannot do this, because it will affect King Yi's image in the eyes of everyone. Luo Ren shook his head slightly, but seeing Kinch's eyes asking her to hold back first, she bit her lip slightly and finally held back. Seeing that Kinch just ran away, Xianguang didn't reprimand himself, nor did he do anything to him. He couldn't help but think of what he said at that time, and thought to himself, it seems that this little bitch really likes me. There are so many people here, I will catch her on the spot. She held her hand. She must have been shy to avoid it. I'd better bear with it for a while. At night, I must let this little bitch see my brother and my manly glory. Alone in his fantasy, Xianguang actually showed an expression of enjoyment, which made King Yi feel sick. If Luo Ren hadn't asked her to hold back, she would have killed Xianguang on the spot. Hey, brother, why are you so proud? We haven't had a good chat about the scolding you just gave me. At this moment, Luo Ren suddenly spoke. Xianguang looked back and was so busy fantasizing that he forgot why Kinch wanted this pretty boy to be the owner of the manor. Could it be that Kinch liked this pretty boy and let him be the owner of the manor because she liked him more than herself? The killing intent in his eyes became stronger, and his anger was already overflowing. He thought, if I kill this pretty boy now, King will definitely be angry, but she shouldn't do anything to me. She won't deal with our male masculinity for a dead person. What? You stare at me like this. Are you going to eat me? Luo Ren sneered with a mocking face. If you want to eat me, you can't just stare at me. If you have the guts, come on. Zhang Guang, who was about to take action, was even more angry when he heard this. He couldn't bear it anymore and roared, "You're looking for death." As soon as the voice fell, he shot out like a cannonball, and with all his strength, he punched Luo Ren in the face with a casserole-like fist. He was very confident that he could definitely kill this hateful pretty boy in front of him with this punch. Luo Ren raised a curve at the corner of his mouth, and the provocation worked. Before the fist arrived, the fist wind had already hit him face. With such a powerful and heavy punch, in the eyes of everyone, Luo Ren was afraid that he would confess. However, the next moment, they were all stunned. They saw Luo Ren raised his hand to catch Zhang Guang's fist, and he did not move at all. Zhang Guang felt that his fist was like hitting a mountain. At this moment, he suddenly understood a sentence. You can't recognize Xianwu Mountain with your eyes. Facing the weak, he can be arrogant and look down. Facing people who are stronger than him, he can be fearless. But when facing Luo Ren, who is as unfathomable as the bottom of the sea, he felt fear and the breath of death coming at him. I'm not a bad person, but I'm not a good person either. For those who want to kill me, I often kill him. After Luo Ren finished speaking, he suddenly grinned. Zhang Guang was horrified and wanted to pull out his hand to avoid this dangerous person, but even if he used all his strength, he couldn't pull his hand back. At this time, Luo Ren moved. His right palm was straight and suddenly stabbed Zhang Guang's chest point buff. Under the gaze of the crowd, a blood flower appeared on Zhang Guang's chest, and a flesh palm pierced his chest, pierced his heart, and came out from his back. Zhang Guang's expression was stiff, frozen in shock, and the life in his eyes was extinguished in an instant. Luo Ren pulled out his palm, and blood flowers appeared again, and Zhang Guang fell straight down without support. Qinj herself was not stupid. Luo Ren asked her not to kill Zhang Guang, but she killed Zhang Guang. She could only think of one reason for doing so. She was moved and emotional from the bottom of her heart, and silently said, "Is he doing it for me?" Chapter 299 Trust. The three words fast, accurate, and ruthless are very appropriate to describe Luo Ren's attack just now. Everyone present, except Qinj and Lingling, who already knew that Luo Ren was very powerful, was stunned at this moment. Reading Zhang Guang is a mid-stage warrior, and his strength is second only to Qinj and Li Yang. Although he has the bonus of surprise, it is difficult for Li Yang, who is a half-step martial artist, to penetrate his entire chest with a bare palm and kill him with one blow. In their impression, Li Yang, who is half a step away from being a martial artist, is afraid that he can't do it. But the man named Luo Ren in front of them did it, and it was very easy, which shows that this man is very strong and unfathomable. They couldn't help but think of Qinj announced Luo Ren as the new owner of the manor. At this moment, the dissatisfaction in their hearts completely dissipated. Luo Ren felt everyone's gaze, his expression unchanged, and looked at Qinj, only to see Qinj staring at him infatuatedly. After a moment's pause, he said, "Don't be in a daze. Things here haven't been completely settled yet." Qinj blinked, came back to her senses, looked at Luo Ren deeply, then turned to face the people under the terrace, took a deep breath, and her face became stern, and her sharp eyes swept over the people below. Her voice was as cold as snow, and she said, "Is there anyone else dissatisfied?" The short 6 words fell clearly and accurately into everyone's ears. Hearing such a cold voice, everyone lowered their heads slightly, not daring to look at Qinj. With the previous experience of Zhang Guang, they would not be stupid enough to seek death. At the same time, they were also very happy about Zhang Guang's death. What this guy did in the past was resented by heaven and people. Not only civilians, but even among them, some were suppressed by Zhang Guang relying on his own strength and status. Sometimes he was beaten or scolded, which was very annoying. Moreover, Zhang Guang just called himself Qinj's man. Such words seemed really stupid to them. Qinj didn't kill him, which showed that she was broad-minded and didn't care about him. But this guy was determined to die, and even provoked someone who was more powerful than Li Yang. In one word, he deserved it. Seeing that no one responded, Kinj lowered her head and immediately understood that they were shocked. Then she said loudly, "Since everyone is satisfied, I will announce it again. From now on, the owner of the manor is Luo Ren, and I will still be the deputy owner of the manor." After the voice fell, no one dared to refute or disobey. In this world, the strong are respected. When facing the strong, they naturally feel, and are convinced. Luo Ren's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light. Considering the current situation, he did not refuse the matter of the owner of the manor after Kinj announced. She waited for Luo Ren to speak. As long as Luo Ren did not refuse, it would be accepted by default. After waiting for a while, she did not hear Luo Ren's refusal. She was overjoyed and spoke again, saying, "Since you all have no objection, then I will continue. Do you remember the original intention of Wuoyang Manor? To provide shelter for the survivors of this disaster and contribute to the continuation of human civilization. But as time passed, your power became greater and stronger, and Li Yang claimed to be a god, and thus set those ridiculous rules. From that moment on, Wuoyang Manor was no longer the original Wuoyang Manor. It can be said that it has become a mess today. However, Li Yang is dead now. Are you willing to assist the new owner of the manor to give our Wuoyang Manor a new lease of life?" Everyone below raised their heads at this moment, raised their fists, and shouted, "We are willing to assist Master Luo Manor to rebuild Wuoyang Manor. This woman is really good at fooling people," Luo Ren said in his heart. Looking at Kinj, who was speaking loudly, he always felt very familiar. It seemed that she was somewhat similar to himself. In the past, didn't he fool the people of other forces in this way? Kinj continued her speech, and the people below listened carefully. It was originally Wuoyang Festival, but now it has become Kinj's special speech. The civilians at the foot of Wukyu Mountain were still prostrating themselves. They didn't know what happened on the mountain, and they didn't want to know what happened on the mountain. They only cared about why they hadn't been allowed to leave. Their stomachs were already rumbling with hunger. They needed to go out of the city to work, and they needed to find some edible things while working, such as leaves, bark, wildflowers, and weeds. No matter whether they tasted good or not, they just needed to be edible. Because, without eating these things, they only relied on 2 bowls of porridge every day. No, that was not even porridge, but only rice soup. With only 2 bowls of rice soup, they would starve to death in a few days. The soldiers holding guns kept scanning these civilians, not worrying that they would run away, but waiting for someone to faint. These skinny people had difficulty walking, so how could they have the strength to run away? Taking these people out hunting, these people's actual role was only one, that was bait. It was absolutely nonsense to think that these people could deal with the tyrannical beasts. Time passed quickly. The sun was at noon, and the scorching sun made the ground hot. The soldiers on duty were sweating profusely. Dozens of ordinary people who were kneeling on the ground had fainted at this time. And it was not just dozens of people who were sunburned, but the soldiers only found dozens of people who were sunburned. The dozens of people who were sunburned were directly dragged out of the crowd by the soldiers and thrown into a shaded place at will. If these people want to survive, they have to rely on their own body's recovery ability, because no one will provide them with treatment. Point bang bang. A soldier dragged a skinny civilian who was sunburned in each hand and threw him under the shade of a tree casually, like throwing away garbage. He panted for a while, wiped his sweat, looked at the sun in the sky, and was immediately stung by the sun. When his eyes regained clarity, he looked at the dozen or so sunburned civilians on the ground, then looked up at the top of the mountain, shook his head slightly, and said, "What a bunch of idiots. I thought it was a festival for all the people to enjoy, but it seems that only those big shots are enjoying it, and we are suffering." He looked at the civilians crawling on the ground and said to himself, "It is estimated that hundreds of people will die this time." But suddenly, the roar of the engine sounded, and he looked along the trend and saw several tanks coming down the mountain, followed by many vehicles of different colors and patterns. He thought to himself, "These idiots are finally coming down. Are they here to accept the worship of all the people?" The tanks drove into the crowd, and the people dispersed one after another. Those who fainted and could not move by themselves, the soldiers hurried forward to drag them away. But the vehicles of different colors did not drive into the crowd, but stopped in front of the crowd. The door of the Dragon and Phoenix auspicious cloud car at the front suddenly opened, and Kinj, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, got out of the car. The door on the other side also opened, and Luo Ren got out of the car. Looking at the many civilians, and seeing the person fainted in the shadow, Luo Ren clenched his fists involuntarily, and said to Kinj, "Let them go back, and have a good rest." "Yes." Kinj bowed slightly, and then said loudly, "No need to work today. Everyone go back, and have a good rest." Chapter 300 now? That's it? Deputy Village Master, spare your life. As soon as Kinj finished speaking, the people shouted in unison, but the content of the shout was not "thanks," but "spare my life." This made Luo Ren very surprised. Why did these people react like this, when they were exempted from working all day? Read obviously, Kinj understood the reason. She pressed her palm down, and the people immediately fell silent. She said, "Don't worry, I will provide you with food today, and it is not just 2 bowls of rice soup, but real food. Thick porridge." Search TWKAN on Google. As soon as these words came out, the whole place fell silent, and the soldiers looked at Kinj in shock. After just one Wuang festival, the upper management is so generous? Seeing this, Kinj added, "Li Yang violated the original intention of establishing Wuang village and was executed. We will rebuild Wuang village. Do you know what is most important in Wuang's? Looking around, no one answered. She said, "The most important thing in our Wuang village is the people, not just some people, but everyone, including you, them, and us. Therefore, from now on, your daily food will no longer be 2 bowls of rice soup that pretends to be porridge, but real porridge, porridge that can fill your stomach. And this is just the beginning. It's porridge now, rice in the future, rice and vegetables in the future, 3 dishes and 1 soup in the future. As long as you build Wuang village with us, these are the promises I make to you." The kneeling people gradually raised their heads, and looked at the beautiful and luxurious woman. Her words were like rain falling from the sky to moisten their hearts. After being numb for a long time, they felt the long lost care at this moment. This woman did not promise to give them any glory or wealth. In fact, this kind of promise is completely unrealistic at the moment. It is just false and empty, and it is difficult for people to believe it. However, what she was talking about was a change in food, which couldn't help but make them feel excited. They somewhat believed in this woman's promise. "Everyone, the sun is very hot. Let's go back and rest quickly," Kinj said again. She looked back at Lingling and ordered, "Lingling, take people to take those fainted residents to the medical room, and provide them with treatment." The girl Lingling took the order and immediately started taking action with a team of people. The act of treating the fainted civilians greatly touched the other conscious people, and they trusted Kinj a little more in their hearts. They got up one after another, and retreated on their own. After the common people retreated, Kinj called out, "Wei Liang-ke, here." A handsome man stepped forward, faced Kinj, and responded respectfully. Just now at the top of the mountain, Luo Ren learned that this person was the second elder of Wuang village, named Wei Liang-ke. How to evaluate this person? He listened to Kinj's description, and concluded in 4 words, neither good nor evil. How to explain the so-called not good means that this person is not a purely kind person. Not evil means literally, it means that this person is not an evil person. Overall, this person is a somewhat selfish but kind-hearted person. Faced with various things, whenever his own interests are involved, he will give priority to the person who makes a choice that is more beneficial to him. Kinj ordered, "Take people to the warehouse to get grain to make porridge. Remember, it is not the rice soup of the past, but porridge. The real porridge must be inserted with chopsticks to keep it from pouring. Do you understand?" Wei Liang-ke responded, "I understand." Kinj turned around, then looked at the people behind her, and announced, "The sense today. Everyone, please go back and rest." After a pause, she added, "I remind you again, to take care of yourselves, and those under you. If you do the same thing again, I will kill them." When everyone heard this, their hearts went crazy, and they all secretly made up their minds to set rules after returning home, and they would never do those unscrupulous things again. After everyone retreated, Kinj and Luo Ren returned to the car. Kinj breathed a sigh of relief, and said to the driver, "Let's go." Soon returning to the villa on the top of the mountain, the two entered it point. As soon as she stepped into the room, Kinja's stern face relaxed, and she sat down casually. She no longer looked like the queen she had just been. When she faced everyone, Luo Ren walked up to her and sat down directly opposite her, staring at her. She was so luxuriously dressed in a phoenix crown and phoenix robe, but Jiayu was lying down at this moment, full of a sense of dissonance. Kinj noticed Luo Ren staring at her, and she turned away, not daring to look at him, because she had already guessed what Luo Ren was going to say next. Luo Ren pondered for a moment and said, "Why did you announce me as the new owner of the village in front of everyone? I once said that I need Wuang village, but I will not manage Wuang village myself." Kinj sat upright and was silent for a long time, then said, "I will manage Wuang village. Your village owner is just a name." She pursed her lips and continued, "Just think of it as my gratitude to you." She glanced at Luo Ren and asked cautiously, "You're not going to be angry, are you?" Luo Ren suddenly smiled and said, "No, since you said so, I will accept the position of owner of the village." When Kinj heard this, she immediately smiled. Since Luo Ren was not angry, she was happy. But Luo Ren suddenly said again, "Just being the owner of the village doesn't satisfy me." After hearing this, Kinj thought secretly. Thoughts flashed through her mind. Her heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and her cheeks could not help but blush. She lowered her head and said shyly, "As long as you want it, I will agree." Luo Ren raised the corner of his mouth and said, "You said this yourself. I didn't force you." Kinj became even more shy, nodded, and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "Yes." Luo Ren said, "In that case, let's get started." Now, Kinj looked at Luo Ren in surprise. When she heard this, Luo Ren nodded and said seriously, "Yes, right now." Kinj's eyes wandered, and her face turned redder, like a ripe apple. She finally bowed her head and said, "It's okay now. Let's go upstairs." "Go upstairs?" "No, just stay here," Luo Ren said. "That's it?" Kinj was startled again, and bit her lip. She didn't expect Luo Ren to like this kind of scene. She hesitated for a while and finally agreed, "Okay." At this moment, the four words beautiful and charming are used to describe her, which can be said to be completely consistent. She sat on the sofa, her eyes slowly closed, her chest heaved violently, and her breathing became more rapid. Her hands tightly grasped the corners of her clothes, waiting for the next storm. Seeing this scene, Luo Ren touched his nose. He felt something was wrong with this scene. He stared at Kinja's flowery face, saw the trembling eyelashes, and asked, "Are you ready?" Kinj nodded slightly. "Then I'll start," Luo Ren said. These words fell into Kinja's ears, making her heart beat faster, her breathing become more rapid, and her ears turned red. She thought to herself, "If I give it to him, he will stay." At this moment, she felt like the world was spinning, and she suddenly opened her eyes, only to find that she was in a strange space with nothing around her. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.